Chapter 878. I know, Gu. I'll be more careful next time. Yunjian's voice was soft and carried a sense of tenderness. Of course, this was only Siyi's opinion. Yunjian lowered her gaze as well. Yunjian was good at adjusting her emotions. She recovered quickly and looked at Yunyi, saying, Gu, let's go to Officer Ge's house for dinner today. Mom mentioned it before. Do you know? Other than the blush on Yunjian's cheeks, she had completely recovered. It was unknown if she had covered it up well or if it was natural. I know. Mom already called me, Yunyi replied and patted his pants pocket, indicating that there was a phone inside. Qin Yiru and Yunyi now had the phones Yunjian bought for them. Yunyi could contact Qin Yiru normally even if she stayed in school. I'll put my bag in my room. Let's go over quickly. Don't let them wait too long, Yunyi said and headed upstairs. When they passed by the stairs where Yunjian and Ce were, Yunyi glanced at Yunjian suspiciously before looking at Ce. Something felt off about the atmosphere. In spite of it, Yunyi did not dwell on it. He bypassed Yunjian and Ce naturally and went to the second floor. It was only when Yunyi went to the second floor that Yunjian breathed a sigh of relief. She then turned to go downstairs, ignoring Ce for the time being. He was getting bolder. It was the same when they went for a barbecue last time. It was the same at home now. If she continued to take it, would he not? Yunjian did not continue thinking about it. She stepped on the stairs and smoothed her clothes gently. Xiao Jian. Watching Yunjian run to the first floor, Ce's starry eyes flashed. In the next second, he called out to Yunjian in a gentle and soft voice. Ce admitted that he had never spoken to anyone in such a gentle tone. He would kill anyone who pissed him off. It was definitely not a casual remark. This could be seen from the things that had happened back then. However, he was more patient and attentive to Yunjian than he had ever been. He could treat Yunjian with the most gentle side. Seeing that Yunjian was ignoring him, Ce went downstairs with a smile. Ce's legs were long, so he caught up to Yunjian in a few steps and grabbed Yunjian's wrist. After grabbing Yunjian's wrist, he moved his hand down and interlaced his fingers with Yunjian's. It was then that an awkward cough came from the stairs leading from the first floor to the second floor. Cough, cough, cough. It was obvious that Yunyi had seen Ce's actions from the stairs. Just as Yunyi's cough was heard, Yunyi was already on the first floor. He did not look at Ce and Yunjian but coughed twice before telling Ce, brother-in-law, let's go. He was thrilled to be called brother-in-law. So what if Ce was older than him? In the end, he still had to be called brother-in-law by him. Hee hee. Yunyi snickered and pretended to be serious as he walked out of the house. When Ce heard Yunyi call him brother-in-law, he was in a good mood again. Then, he held Yunjian's hand and walked out. Gu Yunjian's house and Dong Ruan's house were in different places. However, Gu Yunjian's house and Dong Ruan's house were both villas. Not everyone could afford to live in these villas. However, it was a long journey from Dong Ruan's house to Gu Yunjian's house. Chapter 879. Gu Junjian also lived in a villa area. The villa area here was much larger than the villa area where Dong Ruan's family lived, and it was surrounded by trees. At a glance, other villas could not be seen. There were also some overall facilities. Compared to Dong Ruan's villa, it was much better. If one had to ask why, it was because the villas here were only sold to people who had made contributions to the country. Perhaps it was an order from the higher-ups, so the land in this area could only be sold to people who had made great contributions to the country. Gu Junjian was undoubtedly one of the best candidates. In addition, Gu Yunjian's family was very rich. Therefore, it was very reasonable for him to want to buy a villa here. Are you sure it's here? Yunyi was shocked when she arrived at the gate. The iron gate in front of her was already as big as the school gate. Looking in from the gate, the villa was filled with flower beds and surrounded by green trees. Looking from the gate, she could not see the villa at all. However, This also reflected that Gu Yunjian's family was extraordinarily big. Perhaps compared to Dong Ruan's family, Gu Yunjian's family was many times bigger. Therefore, Yun Yi was immediately stunned. Yun Jian and Ce had seen villas that were hundreds or thousands of times better than this, so naturally, they were not surprised. "Hello, are you young Master Yun Yi and Miss Yun Jian?" At this moment, an old man sitting in the guardhouse at the gate walked out and asked Yun Jian and Yun Yi respectfully. This old man had been guarding the gate here for decades. He had been here since Gu Junjian bought this villa. This old man's surname was Ding. Uncle Ding had been guarding here since Gu Junjian and his ex-wife got married. Before Yun Jian and Yun Yi came, Uncle Ding had been instructed by Gu Junjian not to block Yun Jian and Yun Yi at the gate when they came over. "We are." Yun Yi nodded politely at Uncle Ding. "Then come in." Uncle Ding quickly ran over to open the door. Once the door opened, Yun Jian and the other two walked in. There were many flowers and plants in the villa. It took about 5 to 6 minutes to walk from the gate to the villa. "This is it." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Then, she, Ce, and Yun Yi walked into the house. The gate of the villa was not closed, so Yun Jian and the other two were able to walk in easily. Just as they entered, they saw Qin Yiru coming out with 2 plates of dishes. When she saw Yun Jian and the others, she could not help greeting them, "Ae. Xiao Jian, Xiao Yi, you're all here. Sit down, it's time to eat." As she spoke, Qin Yiru carried the remaining 2 plates of dishes to the dining table. There was a long dining table in front of them. Xiao Yunju, Ce, Lan Su, Adam, and Immerse were already seated. Even Gu Junjian was already waiting there. Seeing Yun Jian and the others, Adam even moved his lips. "They're here, they're here. They're finally here. Let's eat." Shuang had already returned to Enhun group. Unlike Adam and Immerse, Shuang was Enhun's social leader. All of Enhun's missions and external dealings were handled by Shuang in place of Ce. Compared to Adam and Immerse, Shuang did not have much free time. Chapter 880. The group sat down around the long table. The table was rather long but not ridiculously long. It was set up so that one could reach out and take a bite of the food. Even if there were a lot of people, they could still sit down. "Right, Xiao Yi, Xiao Jian said that you got first place in the foreign language competition in high school too." Qin Yiru asked Yun Yi when everyone was seated around the table. Yun Jian had already told Qin Yiru about what happened this Wednesday. The foreign language competition was announced by the school out of the blue and Yun Yi was a boarding student, so he had just returned home. Therefore, it was Yun Jian who told Qin Yiru that Yun Yi had won first place in high school. Hearing that her son and daughter had won first place in the city's foreign language competition in middle school and high school respectively, Qin Yiru was overwhelmed with pride. As their mother, how could Qin Yiru not feel proud? Although she had heard from Yun Jian that Yun Yi had won first place in high school's foreign language competition, Qin Yiru wanted to hear it from her son in person. "Emin, I got first place in the competition this time," Yun Yi answered when he heard his mother's question. "Xiao Jian and Xiao Yi are smart kids indeed." Gu Junjian guffawed, the pride on his face unmistakable. Although Gu Junjian was not Yun Yi and Yun Jian's biological father, both children were actually much closer to Gu Junjian than their biological father, Yun Yi. Gu Junjian was especially nice to Qin Yiru. "It's all because of the children's hard work. It's my blessing to have these 2 children." Qin Yiru chuckled with a hand covering her mouth, but the smile on her face did not diminish. Compared to Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's friendliness, Adam never stopped talking. This was mainly because Qin Yiru's cooking was too delicious, so Adam didn't even have the time to stop and speak. "Is there anyone who eats like you? Your legs have just recovered. If you become crippled, I won't be responsible for helping you." Lan Su was sitting beside Adam. Seeing the way Adam ate, she couldn't help but say something to him. "I'm not. My leg still hurts. I got hurt because of you, so you have to support me." When Adam heard that Lan Su wasn't going to support him, He didn't even have the energy to eat the drumstick in his hand. He immediately threw it into the bowl. That aggrieved look made it seem as if Adam was a little wife who had been bullied by Lan Su. Come on, eat your food. You even wanted to fight with me yesterday. Where did that energy go? Immerse glared at Adam and blindly spoke the truth. Ha! Adam also laughed awkwardly, looking as if he was a little embarrassed. Chi, chi. At this moment, the sound of several sports cars drifting by suddenly sounded at the door. Someone came in? After all, Uncle Ding was guarding the door, so ordinary people shouldn't be able to come in. However, the sound of these sports cars drifting by and stopping at the front door of the villa was so eye-catching. Who came? I'll go take a look. Gu Junjian frowned slightly. Then he stood up and was about to walk out. Okay. Qin Yiru nodded. The moment Gu Junjian stood up from the dining chair, a group of people suddenly walked in through the door of the villa. The leader was a man in his 20s. The man had dyed his hair red, yellow, blue, and green. His short hair had all kinds of colors. It was obvious that it was dyed. However, if one looked at it directly, they would be able to see that the man in the lead had similar eyebrows to Gu Junjian. Chapter 881. Gu Junjian was slightly stunned when he saw Gu Xian. After hearing Gu Junjian's words, coupled with Gu Junjian's reaction, and the fact that Gu Xian and Gu Junjian looked like they were carved from the same mold, everyone present had an idea of what was going on based on these few points alone. This Gu Xian was most likely the son of Gu Junjian and his ex-wife. Qin Yiru recognized him at first glance. Moreover, Qin Yiru had heard from Gu Junjian that his son with his ex-wife was called Gu Xian. Now that she heard Gu Junjian call the man with dyed red, yellow, blue, and green hair, Xian, she could immediately confirm that he was Gu Yunjian's son. Yun Jian could naturally guess as well. However, at this moment, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Ha! The atmosphere became more and more oppressive. At this moment, Gu Xian, who was standing there, suddenly let out a cold chuckle. This chuckle, coupled with Gu Xian's hair, gave people the first impression that he was a hooligan that was not to be trifled with. By the time everyone turned to look at Gu Xian, he was already slowly making his way over. Gu Xian not only dyed his hair stylishly, but he also dressed very fashionably. Qin Yiru's heart skipped a beat when she saw his tattered pants and his roguish sneer. Junjian, this is Xian, right? Qin Yiru turned to ask Gu Junjian to ease the awkward atmosphere. Qin Yiru had already changed her way of addressing Gu Junjian. She no longer called him Officer Gu. Qin Yiru simply wanted to use Gu Yunjian's introduction to greet Gu Xian. For Qin Yiru, it was her principle to behave properly. Gu Junjian nodded in tacit agreement. Little Xian, this is yours. Gu Junjian had just finished his sentence when Gu Xian interrupted him. Haha. What? You're not happy to see me back, right? You didn't even inform me in advance that you're getting married, did you? Gu Xian's voice was a little strange. It was filled with mockery and ridicule. Gu Junjian did not tell Gu Xian that he was going to get married. That was because Gu Junjian had always known that his divorce with his ex-wife was a huge blow to Gu Xian. That was why Gu Xian chose to study abroad. That was why Gu Xian would rather stay abroad than spend the new year with his biological father. However, Gu Junjian wasn't trying to hide it. On the contrary, Gu Junjian didn't know how to break the news to Gu Xian. Of course, during this period, Gu Junjian had been thinking about how to break the news to Gu Xian that he was going to marry another wife. That was why Gu Junjian kept delaying it. However, on the day of the actual wedding, Gu Junjian would of course inform his own son. However, from Gu Xian's point of view, the meaning of this was very different. When his father divorced his mother, it was done without a word. He didn't care about him at all. When parents divorced, no one was more upset than the child. Regarding this matter, Gu Xian had always held a grudge in his heart. However, what did he see when he came in today? Gu Junjian was happily chatting with his new wife. Did he ever think about his own son? Xian, it's not what you think, Gu Junjian still wanted to say something, but before Gu Junjian could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. Gu Xian shouted at Gu Junjian emotionally, if it's not what I think, then what is it? Gu Junjian, you've been seduced by a vixen, right? You don't even want your own son anymore. As Gu Xian spoke, he pointed at Qin Yiru and shouted at Gu Junjian. Chapter 882. Just as Gu Xian spoke up to this point, a bowl was suddenly slammed onto the table. When the bowl was slammed onto the table, it immediately made a loud noise. Bang! Everyone present was frightened by the loud noise in front of them, and their souls shrank fiercely. Of course, this excluded Ce, Adam, Mo Sen, Lan Su, and Yun Yi. As for Gu Xian and the group of people who came in with Gu Xian, they were all shocked. Gu Xian didn't come back alone. He came back with a group of friends. There were about 3 or 4 of Gu Xian's friends, and one of them was a tall and strong foreigner. The others were from country Z. These were all Gu Xian's friends and classmates from his overseas school. When he heard from others that his father was getting married, Gu Xian practically rushed back from abroad with a few of his good buddies. However, just as Gu Xian accused Qin Yiru of marrying him for Gu Yunjian's money, Yun Jian slammed the bowl in her hand onto the table with a loud bang. It had to be said that Gu Xian had crossed Yun Jian's bottom line. And Yun Jian's bottom line was Qin Yiru. If Gu Xian hadn't insulted Qin Yiru, then Yun Jian naturally wouldn't have done anything. However, the problem was that Gu Xian had actually accused Qin Yiru of being a woman who got close to Gu Junjian for money. This was something that Yun Jian couldn't tolerate. Just as Gu Xian and Gu Xian's friends were stunned by Yun Jian's actions, Yun Jian's sharp words rang out. I dare you to say that again. Yun Jian's words carried a power that made it impossible for people not to be afraid, but at least Gu Xian and Gu Xian's friends were shocked. After coming back to his senses, Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian, who stood up from the dining chair. He pretended to be bold and looked back at Yun Jian. Gu Xian gritted his teeth. He immediately looked at Yun Jian with an imposing manner and replied, Who are you? What does my family's business have to do with you? Gu Xian hadn't been obedient all these years. Gu Yunjian's divorce with his ex-wife was a huge blow to him, so Gu Xian had been living a leisurely life abroad these years. In his free time, he had befriended a group of hooligan-like buddies. Therefore, Gu Xian's tone was a little boastful. I'm not anyone. Your family's future has nothing to do with me, and I'm not interested in your family's future at all, Yun Jian said. Yun Jian paused. Then her eyes suddenly became sharp, and those sharp eyes carried an irresistible courage. But the person you insulted just now is my mother. I don't care about your family's business, but if you insult my mother, then I won't allow it. Yun Jian said word by word. Her words carried an irresistible authority. Even Gu Junjian wanted to speak up for Yun Jian. Others might not know, but how could Gu Junjian not know? Not only did Yun Jian have several identities now, more importantly, she was the boss of the internationally renowned Kosha mercenaries. How could the boss of Kosha mercenaries, the mother of slaying God, the world's top secret agent, be someone who lacked money? Who knows if it's an insult or not? Maybe your mom got close to my dad for money. Gu Xian hated Gu Junjian now, so he did not have a good opinion of Yun Jian and Qin Yiru. Xian, don't spout nonsense. Xiao Jian is your younger sister from now on. Gu Junjian could not help growling at his son. Chapter 883. However, Gu Junjian did not yell at Gu Xian because in Gu Yunjian's opinion, he had already let his son down. Gu Junjian himself admitted that he had been busy with military affairs and had paid little attention to his family. Gu Yunjian's ex-wife had run away with another man and divorced him because of this. It was also because of this that Gu Xian deeply hated his biological father, Gu Junjian. Therefore, when Gu Xian wanted to study abroad, and when Gu Xian wanted to do a series of things, including making a group of bad friends, Gu Junjian did not participate too much. This was because Gu Junjian felt that he had let Gu Xian down. Even when they were young, Gu Junjian had always listened to Gu Xian and had never insulted him. If it were not for Gu Xian's outrageous words, Gu Junjian would not have spoken to Gu Xian in such a tone. All these years, his father had never insulted him, but because of Qin Yiru, he had insulted him. Gu Xian looked at him in disbelief. "You've changed. You never said that to me before." Gu Xian looked at Gu Junjian with hatred. He was not even willing to call him dad. To Gu Xian, Gu Junjian had never cared about his family before. After his mother cheated on him, Gu Junjian divorced his biological mother without saying a word. Since he was young, he had been more miserable than others. Therefore, Gu Xian felt that he should enjoy Gu Junjian's apology. He should make Gu Junjian regret it. In fact, there were many people who had the same idea as Gu Xian. Gu Xian had turned himself into a hooligan, or perhaps it was because he had fallen from grace. In fact, he had only done this for one thing. He wanted Gu Junjian to regret it. He wanted Gu Junjian to see what he had done in the past. He wanted his son to become the kind of person he should not be. Gu Xian had become like this because of Gu Junjian. As expected, it's just like what others say. When a mistress enters the family, everything is decided by the mistress. I won't acknowledge such a shameless vixen. I don't have a sister. My parents only gave birth to me. Gu Xian roared at Gu Junjian. His eyes were filled with hatred. Shut up. After Gu Xian roared, Gu Junjian did not wait for Yun Jian to make a move. He grabbed the bowl in his hand and threw it at Gu Xian. This was the first time Gu Junjian had been so angry and hit Gu Xian. Gu Xian's words completely enraged Gu Junjian. Gu Xian called Qin Yiru a vixen. To be honest, Gu Junjian could not hold it in anymore. Qin Yiru was the person Gu Junjian had decided on. In other words, Gu Junjian had already decided that Qin Yiru would be the person who would share the joys and sorrows of his life with him. Therefore, even his son, who he had always tolerated, would not allow him to insult her like this. Ping 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 pang pang. The bowl was thrown at Gu Xian in an arc Gu Xian did not dodge. He watched as Gu Junjian threw the bowl at him, and finally, the rice in the bowl was thrown at him. The person who was smashed was stunned for a moment. He had always thought that his father, Gu Junjian, would tolerate him in the future because of his guilt. However, ever since he walked into the house and saw Gu Junjian chatting and eating with Qin Yiru and the others, Gu Xian felt that he no longer belonged to this family. He felt that he was very pitiful and miserable. Gu Junjian, you will regret this. Gu Xian glared at Gu Junjian fiercely. After he finished speaking, he ran out without even looking at his friends. Chapter 884. In that situation, Gu Xian's friends didn't say anything. After all, it was their family matter. However, when they saw Gu Xian rush out without looking back, Gu Xian's friends also ran out. It wasn't easy for the child to come back. Even if he said something unpleasant, you shouldn't treat him like this. The child is still young. Some things can be discussed slowly. Qin Yiru's hands were tightly clasped together. She stood up hesitantly and spoke to Gu Junjian. Qin Yiru was very kind. Even if Gu Xian had insulted her and called her a vixen, Qin Yiru wasn't angry. Of course, Qin Yiru wasn't the kind of person who liked to be bullied. However, she understood how big of a blow a child's parents' divorce was. Back then, Qin Yiru didn't want to divorce Yun Gang because she was afraid that Yun Jian and Yun Yi wouldn't be able to accept it. If one were to ask Qin Yiru why she understood this kind of rebellious mentality, it was because Dong Ruan's parents had divorced long ago. Dong Ruan often complained to her about this. When Dong Ruan's parents divorced, it was a big blow to Dong Ruan and Siyi's mother. Especially Dong Ruan. She studied so hard when she was young because she wanted to be strong. However, Qin Yiru knew that Dong Ruan's parents' divorce was no different from the sky falling down on her. Especially after Dong Ruan's parents reorganized their families, Dong Ruan became an outsider in that family. Although Dong Ruan's parents were rich and Dong Ruan had never lacked financial love, to Dong Ruan, without family love, it was as if she had lost everything in life. Qin Yiru didn't want Yun Jian and Yun Yi to become like that, so she didn't divorce Yun Gang. However, since Yun Jian and Yun Yi didn't think that way and Yun Gang cheated, Qin Yiru decided to go all out and divorce Yun Gang. I'll go check on him. Qin Yiru was overflowing with maternal love. She was a kind person, so when she saw Gu Xian running out, she stood up and chased after him. Gu Junjian held his forehead with his hand, a look of despair and pain on his face. It was not that Gu Junjian did not expect Gu Xian to hate him, but what could he do? What could he do? Seeing Qin Yiru run out, Yun Jian was worried that she would be bullied by Gu Xian. Therefore, Yun Jian also stood up. She said to the few people present and then followed Qin Yiru out. I'll go take a look too. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she left the dining chair and walked out of the door. Yun Jian knew that it would be very awkward for Gu Junjian to go out in this situation, especially when Gu Xian was still angry. However, if Qin Yiru went out alone, Yun Jian was afraid that Qin Yiru would be bullied. Just as Yun Jian stood up, Ce stood up at the same time. He did not say anything and followed Yun Jian out of the door. On the other side, Gu Xian simply rushed out of the door. Unknowingly, it had started to drizzle outside the door. Gu Xian plunged into the rain, but he did not feel cold or chilly at all. He had been waiting for his mother to come back, to reconcile with his father, and for the family to be reunited. However, all of this was shattered. When he saw Gu Junjian happily with Qin Yiru and the others, he suddenly felt that he could not fit in with this family. Was his existence superfluous? Xian. A few of Gu Xian's friends rushed out and grabbed Gu Xian. At that moment, Gu Xian was on the verge of collapse. He looked like a dying man on the brink of death. Chapter 885. Xian, it's not easy for you to come home. Don't be angry with your father. Come home with me, okay? Qin Yiru said gently as she walked over. As she spoke, Qin Yiru even reached out to help Gu Xian. However, Gu Xian saw Qin Yiru's hand coming towards him from the corner of his eye, and his heart was filled with hatred. Get lost. Hypocrite, who allowed you to call me Xian? Disgusting, don't touch me. As Gu Xian spoke, he reached out and slapped away Qin Yiru's hand that was reaching towards Gu Xian. Qin Yiru sincerely reached out to help Gu Xian, but who knew that when Gu Xian slapped her, Qin Yiru would take 2 steps back. It took her a long time to stabilize her feet, but because her left foot accidentally twisted, she fell into a puddle. Ah! Qin Yiru shrieked before her feet gave way and she fell into a puddle that was filled by the drizzle. You vixen! Who told you to be hypocritical and bully Xian? Go to hell! A guy standing next to Gu Xian saw Qin Yiru fall into the puddle, so he directly walked over and lifted his foot. It looked like he was going to kick Qin Yiru. This guy from Gu Xian was dressed like a rich man, and the arrogance on his face could not be described with words. Arrogant, conceited, these were all enough to describe this guy. Shenjia, stop. Seeing that his friend was about to step on Qin Yiru for him, Gu Xian looked at Qin Yiru, who fell to the ground, and looked at Qin Yiru's face that was slightly old due to overwork, and he unconsciously shouted. However, Gu Xian's friend did not listen to Gu Xian's words, and this guy called Shenjia still stepped on Qin Yiru. F***CKU, mistress, bitch. Go to hell, bitch. Shenjia did not listen to his advice, and when Gu Xian reached out to stop him, Shenjia's foot had already landed on Qin Yiru's body. Qin Yiru had already accidentally fallen into the puddle, and now she was still angry after being kicked by Shenjia. At this time, Yun Jian just happened to see this scene from the door, and she did not expect to see this scene at all. When she saw Shenjia kick Qin Yiru's abdomen, Yun Jian growled, "Mom," and immediately rushed towards Qin Yiru. Gu Junjian, who was sitting in the room, was still holding his head with an embarrassed expression. At this time, he suddenly heard Yun Jian's growl, and he suddenly stood up. What happened? What happened? Gu Junjian said as he stood up from the table, and he rushed towards the door. Gu Junjian believed in his son, Gu Xian's character. Although Gu Xian's words were unpleasant, he would not do such a crazy thing. Gu Junjian quickly thought of Gu Xian's brothers. Could it be, on this side, Shenjia kicked Qin Yiru's abdomen fiercely. Shenjia wanted to lift his leg to kick Qin Yiru again, but he was stopped by Gu Xian. *CK, Gu Xian, what are you doing? Why do you care about this mistress? He might as well kill her directly. I'm trying to help you, Shenjia said confidently. Gu Xian did not know why, but when he looked at Qin Yiru's face, which was obviously overworked and slightly old, his heart tightened. What the hell, he actually pitied this mistress who was about to steal his father away. However, Gu Xian could not help but take 2 steps towards Qin Yiru. Chapter 886. Qin Yiru was already old, and after being kicked by Shenjia, she was a little dizzy. Because of overwork these years, Qin Yiru's body had some sequelae. However, Shenjia didn't care about this. For a rich young master like him, he could kick whoever he wanted, and he never cared about it. And now, Shenjia watched as Gu Xian extended his hand to help Qin Yiru up. He stood behind Gu Xian and laughed wildly, and even mocked Gu Xian. Gu Xian, are you stupid? That's a mistress. She wants to marry your dad and take away your dad's love, and you actually went to help her. I helped you kick her twice, and that's already letting her off easy, you. At this time, Gu Xian had already helped Qin Yiru up. However, at the same time, Shenjia, who was laughing wildly behind Gu Xian and mocking Gu Xian for helping Qin Yiru up, suddenly felt a gust of wind coming from behind him. In the next second, he felt as if someone had kicked him hard in the waist. By the time Shenjia reacted, the heavy kick had already landed on his waist. Being kicked in the waist from behind, Shenjia instinctively wanted to stand firm. However, the powerful force behind the kick sent Shenjia crashing to the ground. Gu Xian was supporting Qin Yiru, and Shenjia had his back facing them. Only the other 2 buddies of Gu Xian were watching from the side. However, at this moment, they saw a horrifying scene. They saw Yun Jian madly rushing towards them. She lifted her legs, and those long legs seemed to have a huge amount of magic, running towards them at the speed of an arrow. Then, at the moment when she was close to Shenjia, Yun Jian suddenly jumped on the ground with her right foot. She used the momentum of her right foot to sweep her body at a 90-degree angle. At the last second when she was close to Shenjia, she switched from her right foot to her left foot. Her left foot suddenly stretched out, and with a charge, Yun Jian's left foot fiercely kicked Shenjia, whose back was facing her. Shenjia was kicked almost at the same time. His whole body trembled as he took 2 steps forward. His legs went soft, and Shenjia actually knelt down with his face facing down. With this kneeling, Shenjia's upper body couldn't support himself, and he also fell to the ground like a frog. However, in front of Shenjia was a bumpy cement ground. Because of the rain, the bumpy cement ground was filled with a large amount of muddy cement. As for Shenjia, he directly crashed into the cement pit with his face down. However, Shenjia quickly reacted. In any case, Shenjia was also a young master who practiced taekwondo and sanda. When he reacted, he quickly stood up. Yun Jian suddenly lifted her leg, and with a horizontal kick, Shenjia was once again kicked into the cement ground. But this time, Shenjia's face was facing the sky. But because of the previous kick, Shenjia's entire face was now covered with muddy cement. He couldn't even open his eyes. However, just as Shenjia was about to get up again, Yun Jian's pair of jade feet fiercely stepped on Shenjia's abdomen. Not only that, after Yun Jian stretched out her foot to step on Shenjia's abdomen, she also heavily shifted her foot twice. Shenjia felt that his internal organs in his abdomen were about to be shattered by Yun Jian's kick. He couldn't open his eyes, and could only let out a scream. Chapter 887. Shenjia could only hear Yun Jian's arrogant words that could not be ignored. Because his entire face was soaked in the muddy water, Shenjia could not open his eyes. He could only hear Yun Jian's crisp and arrogant words lingering in his ears. However, Shinjia could feel that the foot on his abdomen was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. It was so oppressive that he could not even breathe. Let go. Shinjia was suppressed by the intense pain and did not pay attention to Yunjian's words. As he spoke, he reached out to grab the foot that was stepping on his abdomen. However, the moment Shinjia reached out his hand, Yunjian lifted her foot slightly. The moment Shinjia was about to grab her foot, she lifted her leg slightly to the side and avoided Shinjia's grab. Just as Shinjia heaved a sigh of relief and was about to stand up, Yunjian's foot once again stepped on Shinjia's abdomen. Ouch! Shinjia could not help but let out a painful howl. Who was it? Who was so daring to step on him again and again? Shinjia was the son of a rich family. He had never been treated like this before. Therefore, he immediately roared with hatred, "What are you doing? F***ck, come and help me. Guxian, I was helping you beat up the mistress just now." The word mistress made Yunjian furious. Gu Junjian had already divorced his ex-wife. Therefore, no matter legally or morally, Gu Junjian was still single. Qin Yiru had also divorced Yun Gang. If the two of them were to be together, it would be perfectly justifiable. There was no such thing as a mistress. Moreover, if Gu Junjian was not single, Qin Yiru would not agree to be together with him. Therefore, when Shinjia once again insulted Qin Yiru as a mistress, Yunjian once again lifted her foot and kicked down. Shinjia was kicked by Yunjian and his whole body sank deeper into the cement ground. At this moment, Gu Junjian had already rushed over. What's wrong? What just happened? When Gu Junjian saw Guxian helping Qin Yiru up, he immediately rushed over to help Guxian hold Qin Yiru's hand. Qin Yiru took a long time to react. I'm fine. Qin Yiru slowly regained her senses. After she regained her consciousness, she did not even think of complaining to Gu Junjian about Guxian. At this time, Shinjia's insults came again. F***ck, what are you doing? Hurry up and drag this damned woman out for lousy. Damn it. Yunjian stepped on Shinjia's abdomen. At this moment, Shinjia was as miserable as he could be. However, looking at Yunjian's horrifying appearance, Guxian's other 2 or 3 friends did not dare to go up and pull Yunjian to help Shinjia get out of this predicament. Guxian, on the other hand, ran over after helping Qin Yiru up. Then he looked at Yunjian, paused for a moment, and shouted, "Stop fighting." Ha! Guxian's shout was met with a cold snort from Yunjian. You think we should stop fighting just because you say so? Who do you think you are? Yunjian asked out of the blue. However, just as she finished speaking, Yunjian raised her foot and kicked Guxian's abdomen fiercely again. Does it feel good? That's how you kicked my mother just now. Yunjian's gloomy voice sounded. Her words were mixed with a sneer that could not be ignored. Ah. 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 Shinjia was a person who cared a lot about his reputation. At this moment, he was kicked by a girl and struggled desperately to no avail. This was extremely embarrassing for Shinjia. F***ck. F***ck off. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Shinjia shouted in disdain. Ce, who was standing at the side, heard this and was about to make a move, but Yunjian had already made her move. She took out a butterfly knife from her pocket and stabbed it into the soil next to Shinjia's cheek. When Shinjia's face moved, he felt that if he had turned his head to the side, the butterfly knife would have pierced his head. Suddenly, his whole body trembled. Chapter 888. As long as Shinjia moved his cheek to the left, he would be able to feel the cold butterfly knife sticking to his face. He trembled and his whole body went soft. Shinjia was born into a wealthy family. Even in the whole of country Z, the Shin family was considered one of the top aristocratic families. Kicking Qin Yiru like he did just now was something that Shinjia often did. For a rich man like Shinjia, he usually dressed like a ruffian and looked down on ordinary people because of his prominent family background. Therefore, people like Shinjia would usually bully the nannies in his family. Punching and kicking were common. However, because the Shin family offered a high salary, the nannies were not willing to leave. This was also a fact. The evil behavior that he developed when he was young caused Shinjia to start hitting Qin Yiru when he had the chance. Moreover, fighting with people in school was also a common thing for Shinjia. Even so, Shinjia had never been threatened by a woman who stepped on the ground. What was more frightening was that this woman really dared to use a knife. She wanted to kill him. Shinjia was a rich man's son. Although he would usually get injured when he fought with others, he had never experienced the despair of walking on the edge of death. Of course, perhaps in Shinjia's opinion, getting injured in a fight was a very cool thing. Just as Shinjia was thinking about this, Yunjian's frivolous voice sounded again, "You can die now." After speaking, Shinjia felt the butterfly knife that was stuck to his face being pulled out from the ground by Yunjian. Shinjia's face was covered in mud, even his eyes were stained with mud. Therefore, he could only feel Yunjian's actions. However, when he heard Yunjian's voice, Shinjia's heart jumped wildly. She was not joking. She was serious. At this moment, Shinjia could feel that Yunjian was holding the butterfly knife above his head and was about to chop it down on his head. No. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done this. I was wrong. Shinjia's voice trembled as he begged for mercy, his arrogance completely washed away. The arrogant Shinjia just now had become like this. Yunjian merely scoffed. "Xiao Jian, don't." Just as Yunjian's knife was about to land on Shinjia's face, Qin Yiru's shout rang out. Yunjian retracted the knife in time. Yunjian had never thought of killing Shinjia. Moreover, Yunjian was an advanced special forces soldier now, but they could not kill people recklessly like this. If that was the case, there would be no law in this world. Yunjian wanted to teach Shinjia a lesson. At the very least, it had to be the kind of lesson where they wouldn't dare to be arrogant anymore. Before Yunjian made a move, Qin Yiru's voice rang. "Xiao Jian, don't do this. Put the knife away. You're part of the military now, don't tarnish the military's reputation." Qin Yiru panicked when she saw Yunjian pointing the knife at Shinjia, so she went over to snatch the butterfly knife from Yunjian's hand and pulled Yunjian to the side. Shinjia breathed a sigh of relief when Yunjian was pulled away. The foot that exerted gravity on his stomach disappeared. Shinjia seemed to have been reborn. He lay on the ground and took a few deep breaths. As Qin Yiru pulled Yunjian away, Guxian heard a few thunderous words. Guxian turned to Gu Junjian immediately. "Dad, she's from the military?" he asked unwillingly. Chapter 889. Guxian's words sent chills down Shinjia's spine, who was lying lifelessly on the floor, as well as Guxian's other two buddies. Yunjian was from the military? While Guxian and his men were still in shock at Qin Yiru's words, Qin Yiru had already pulled Yunjian to the side. "Xiao Jian, I'm fine. I'm still strong. It's okay, it's okay." Shinjia had kicked her hard just now and it was painful, but Qin Yiru still bore the pain and consoled Yunjian. Qin Yiru was behaving this way partly because Shinjia was Guxian's buddy after all. Guxian was quite a pitiful child, and it was apparent from what happened just now that Guxian was not a bad person. When Shinjia kicked her just now, he even stood up to stop it. Qin Yiru did not like people like Shinjia. People like him were practically thugs. He was the kind of person that people would say, whoever hung out with him would be led astray. Guxian hung out with these buddies purely because he wanted to be noticed by Gu Junjian so that Gu Junjian could fulfill his responsibility as a father. In spite of it, Gu Junjian seemed to have gotten the wrong idea. He felt that he had let Guxian down, so he ignored Guxian even more after that. As a result, Guxian became more and more depraved and had befriended a bunch of gangsters now. Even when he was overseas, he got into fights every day. The group of people he befriended was no different from Shinjia's group. They were people who would even beat up women and children. The other main reason was that if Yunjian killed Shinjia because of this, she would not be able to avoid jail time even if Yunjian was a member of the advanced special forces. Qin Yuru's proudest thing was to have Yunjian and Yun-Yi as her children. How could she possibly watch Yunjian do something foolish? In spite of it, Qin Yuru did not know that Yunjian did not want to kill Shinjia just now. She only wanted to intimidate him. Of course, that was enough to scare Shinjia half to death from Yunjian. Qin Yuru's persuasion was effective on Yunjian as Yunjian calmed down right away. "Mom, you don't have to do this." A murderous look flashed across Yunjian's cold eyes as she looked at Qin Yuru. She then paused and looked at Shinjia, who was lying on the ground. "My mom forgave you today, so I won't pursue the matter. If you dare to lay a hand on my mom again, even the Jade Emperor won't be able to stop you from meeting the King of Hell." After Yunjian finished speaking, she turned and helped Qin Yuru into the house. As they walked, Yunjian asked, "Mom, does it hurt?" "Come in quickly, I'll take a look." After Yunjian left, Ce did not. His tall figure was even more conspicuous than the others present. Especially his handsome face and the murderous look on his face, everyone felt that he was handsome no matter how they looked at him. Shinjia had already been helped up by the two brothers who were too stunned to help. Gu Xian and Gu Junjian were still standing in the same spot. Being supported by Yunjian, Qin Yuru finally felt the pain coming from her waist. Shinjia had kicked her there and she felt that her body was about to fall apart. However, after taking 2 steps, Qin Yuru turned around. She looked at the few people who were still standing in the rain and urged, "Hurry up and go into the house. It's still raining. Nothing is more important than your health." After Qin Yuru finished speaking, she was helped into the house by Yunjian. After hearing Qin Yuru's words, Gu Xian knew that Qin Yuru's words were meant for him. Was she concerned about him? Chapter 890. Gu Xian had never experienced a mother's love before. After Gu Xian's mother gave birth to Gu Xian, she left Gu Xian at home and went out to meet people dressed to the nines. Even so, Gu Xian did not resent his birth mother. There was no other reason other than the fact that she was his birth mother. No matter how badly she treated him, he could only accept it. Ever since Gu Junjian divorced his birth mother, Gu Xian was disheartened by them, but Gu Xian still held on to a tiny bit of illusion. What if his parents remarried one day? Then, like other parents, they would pamper and spoil their children, even if they were not pampered or spoiled, no matter how hard their days were. As long as they cared for him a little, that would be enough. In spite of it, Gu Xian actually felt a hint of kinship from this woman who was about to become his stepmother. Was he hallucinating? Even his birth parents had never given him any kinship. How could he feel kinship from someone else? "Xian, stop fooling around. Your auntie is a kind person. She's not like what you said." That was Xiao Jian just now. "Since you asked, I won't hide it from you. Xiao Jian is part of my military." Gu Junjian did not plan to hide this from his son. In spite of it, after Gu Junjian said that Yunjian was part of his military, Gu Xian's indignant groan rang again. "What did you say? She's really part of your military?" As he spoke, Gu Xian's indignant voice rang again. "You actually let her join your army? I wanted to join your military back then, but you didn't allow it. You even said that I wasn't capable enough. What about now? Have you really been bewitched? You're letting a little girl like her join the military. You didn't even want me to join back then." Gu Xian raised his voice. Gu Xian also had the heart to protect his country. When he was young, he took Gu Junjian as his role model. Ever since he was young, he wanted to be a soldier, but Gu Junjian did not give him the chance. Gu Junjian was the leader of the advanced special forces. At the same time, he also had the authority to recruit outstanding youths from all over the country. Gu Xian wanted to join the advanced special forces and become a member, but Gu Junjian did not give him the chance. Therefore, when Gu Xian found out that Yunjian had joined the military, he was furious. Although Yunjian was so fierce just now, Gu Xian didn't think that Yunjian was that capable. In other words, Gu Xian himself was a martial artist. He knew that Yun Jian had some skills, but he would not admit that Yun Jian was better than him. Under such circumstances, how could Gu Xian not think about it? Why would his father rather let Yun Jian join the advanced special forces than let him join? If this wasn't favoritism, then what was? Shut up. Xian heir, what do you know? Gu Junjian gritted his teeth in anger. He wanted to tell him everything, but the words that were about to leave his mouth were stopped. Isn't that so? If you weren't bewitched, why would you let her join the advanced special forces? Gu Xian raised his voice again. At this time, Shenjia was already being helped up. Why? You want to know why, right? Gu Junjian couldn't hold it in anymore and cried out in pain. Because she's better than you. She's stronger than you, whether it's strength or ability, she's better than you. Although Gu Junjian didn't want to belittle his own son, he had to admit it. Chapter 891. It was rare for Gu Xian to hear his father use such words against him. Most importantly, he had never heard his father praise someone in such a tone before. It could be said that in Gu Xian's mind, his father was someone who would never praise others. Therefore, Gu Xian was very surprised. Forget it, forget it. There's no point in talking about this anymore. Let's go home. Gu Junjian had a headache from arguing with Gu Xian. He reached out and touched his forehead, brushed his short hair, and said to Gu Xian. Gu Xian was not convinced, but Gu Junjian had already said so. Moreover, he was no longer a child. He had been Gu Yunjian's father for so many years. How could he not understand Gu Junjian? Gu Junjian never turned back once he did something. Knowing this, Gu Xian did not intend to continue arguing. Bang! Just as Gu Xian had calmed down and was about to go home with Gu Junjian, he heard the sound of a heavy object being slammed to the ground. Gu Xian and Gu Junjian both turned to look at the same time. Shenjia, who had just stood up and wiped the cement on his face with a napkin and had just regained his sight, was kicked to the ground again by Ce with a hard kick, causing a loud thud to resound in the air. Ce's kick sent Shenjia flying, the bones in his body crackling. Shenjia did not expect that Ce did not follow Yunjian back to the house to teach him a lesson. At this moment, Shenjia had been kicked to the ground. He did not even have time to react. However, the bones in his body were still making cracking sounds. In the next second, Shenjia's painful howl resounded through the sky. Ah! My leg! Ah! The cracking of bones was enough to prove that the bones in Shenjia's leg were broken. Ce had broken his leg with a single kick. Everyone present was shocked by Ce's ferocious actions. Especially Gu Xian and Gu Junjian. She had just seen Ce standing beside Yunjian without saying a word. What happened in the end? Just as Yunjian helped Qin Yiru into the house, Ce was even more ruthless than Yunjian. He kicked Shenjia's foot so hard that the bones in his foot were broken. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Just as everyone present was looking at Ce in shock, they saw Ce raise his long legs and walk unsteadily toward Shenjia, who had been kicked to the ground and was hugging his leg as he howled in pain. You! What are you doing? Gu Xian and Shenjia's other two friends saw Ce walking towards them. The moment they thought of Ce's actions, they felt their hair stand on end. Now that Ce was walking towards them, they retreated in fear. Ce didn't say a word. He walked straight to Shenjia and bent down slightly. He reached out his bony hand and grabbed Shenjia's collar. With this grab, Ce actually pulled Shenjia up from the ground. Ah! You! What are you doing? Shenjia was sweating profusely after a few seconds of pain. He stared at Ce as if he was looking at a ferocious beast. How dare you touch my mother-in-law? Do you think I'll let you off? A murderous look flashed across Ce's sharp eyes. He curved his handsome face and curved his lips. There was an undeniable ruthlessness on his face. Shenjia was in so much pain that his entire body was trembling. His abdomen, which had been kicked by Yunjian, was still hurting. He wasn't joking. Right now, Ce was like a king who looked down on all living beings. His tall posture and his flamboyant words did not feel out of place at all. Chapter 892. Shenjie didn't expect Ce to be so calculative. In the past, Shenjie was always the one who bullied others, and there was no reason for others to bully him. Moreover, people like Shenjie liked to form cliques. When they were studying abroad, they formed a gang, and it was equivalent to the kind of gang that was formed to fight with others. Therefore, under such circumstances, Shenjie felt that he had a lot of face. Therefore, when he kicked Qin Yiru, his foppish character was revealed. When he kicked Qin Yiru, he used all his strength. However, Shenjie didn't expect that Ce would actually attack him. Moreover, he was so ruthless that he didn't even have a chance to fight back. Under Ce's pressure, Shenjie had no choice but to lower his head. He was so scared that his whole body was trembling. Then, he said, "I was wrong. I can apologize." Shenjie felt that his legs were about to be crippled. He had never met people like Ce and Yunjian. The former had just beaten him up, and Qin Yiru had stopped her from killing him. However, the latter had broken his bones with one kick. He had only kicked Qin Yiru a few times. If Shenjie had known that this would happen, he probably wouldn't have attacked Qin Yiru. Frankly speaking, he wouldn't have dared to do it even if he was beaten to death. However, this time, Ce didn't care about Shenjie. In front of Gu Xian and Gu Junjian, he grabbed Shenjie's collar and kicked Shenjie's abdomen fiercely. This was enough to break all the bones in Shenjie's body. Ah! Shenjie howled as he was sent flying. After he landed heavily, he lay on the ground in the distance and didn't make any more noise. He wasn't dead, he just fainted. Shenjie. Gu Xian and Shenjie's other two friends saw this and rushed over in fright. F***ck. Gu Xian cursed. Then, he ran over as well. After Ce kicked Shenjie, he wasn't worried about Shenjie's life at all. Instead, he walked into the house. His tall figure walked in the drizzle and soon disappeared in front of everyone. In any case, Shenjie was his brother, so Gu Xian and two other people helped Shenjie to the hospital. Gu Junjian didn't follow him. After giving Gu Xian some instructions, Gu Junjian returned to his room. Hence, Gu Xian drove the unconscious Shenjie to a nearby hospital. The gathering at Gu Yunjian's house this time was very unpleasant because of Gu Xian's return. Therefore, no one ate much at dinner. Of course, except for Adam, Mo Sen, and a few others. At night, Yunjian and the others returned to Dong Ruan's villa. The next day, when Yunjian woke up and came back from her morning run, Qin Yiru had already gone to Gu Yunjian's house to prepare breakfast for Gu Xian. Gu Junjian had gone to the army. Qin Yiru was a kind person. She was afraid that Gu Xian wouldn't eat breakfast alone at home, so she hurried over to prepare breakfast for Gu Xian. Yunjian was afraid that Gu Xian or his friends would cause trouble again, so Yunjian took 2 pieces of bread that Qin Yiru had prepared for her and walked towards Gu Yunjian's house as if she was taking a stroll. At the entrance of Gu Yunjian's house, Yunjian met Gu Xian, who had just come out of the villa. The moment Gu Xian saw Yunjian, he snorted coldly and wanted to walk around Yunjian. Stop. Yunjian didn't turn around to look at Gu Xian. She just snorted softly. Hearing Yunjian snort, Gu Xian just snorted and wanted to walk around Yunjian. How about a race? As a racing enthusiast, you should be very interested in racing. If I can beat you, you're not allowed to be so rude to my mother in the future, Yunjian said when she saw Gu Xian walk around her. She wasn't angry. Yunjian's words really stunned Gu Xian. Chapter 893. Gu Xian's face was full of surprise. Racing was a symbol of wildness. At the same time, in foreign countries, especially in Gu Xian's school, men who could race and drive well would be regarded as extremely manly and charming by girls. Like the wind, Guxian and several of his buddies also became obsessed with racing. During his school days, Guxian was extremely obsessed with racing. It could be said that he was obsessed with it to a whole new level. Racing itself was exciting and dangerous. Perhaps in the beginning, Guxian and the others followed the trend to learn how to race. But it was undeniable that Guxian and the others were indeed obsessed with racing later. However, his interest in racing was not even mentioned to his own father, Gu Junjian. How did Yunjian know? Guxian originally intended to ignore Yunjian, but when he heard Yunjian's words, he was stunned on the spot, so he hurriedly turned around and asked. Yunjian slowly crossed her arms in front of her chest. She appeared relaxed, but did not speak immediately. Just when Guxian thought that Yunjian would not speak, Yunjian's voice suddenly sounded, "Your sports car has been modified, right?" Yunjian's words were not a question, but an affirmative tone. It was only then that Guxian turned back to look at his sports car that was parked not too far away at Yunjian's words. Then he looked at Yunjian in a daze and nodded, yes. After being stunned, Guxian was puzzled again. How do you know that my sports car has been modified? And you didn't get close to my sports car to observe, how? Guxian had just finished asking when he was interrupted by Yunjian. I accidentally saw it last night. Anyone with a discerning eye can tell at a glance that it has been modified. Yunjian paused for a beat before she continued, you're right. Why would a normal person think of modifying a sports car? What's more, I saw a lot of scratches on your sports car. Unless you are a racing enthusiast, unless it is a sports car, how could it be modified like this by you? Yunjian's explanation made Guxian speechless. But it turned out that Yunjian's words were all reasonable. Ahem. Guxian coughed softly. He obviously did not expect his stepmother's daughter to be able to see this. Could it be that a girl like her also liked racing? Ahem, you are a girl, do you also like to study these things? Guxian was suddenly interested in Yunjian. He changed his attitude of ignoring Yunjian and immediately asked Yunjian. Of course, he was only interested in this kind of curiosity towards his sister at most. However, Guxian did not notice the change in his mentality at all. However, Guxian still did not believe that Yunjian knew how to drive a race car. After all, Yunjian was still underage. At 16 years old, she was still considered a minor in Z country and could not get a driver's license. How could she start school without a driver's license? Unless she was a genius? Otherwise, who would have the ability to do so? Yunjian saw that Guxian did not believe her, but she was not angry. She put down her arms and reached out with her left hand to lift her high ponytail that fell on her chest. Yunjian's way of lifting her hair was different from a little girl's. Her arrogant look made even Guxian's eyes pop out of their sockets. But Guxian's eyes simply lit up. Chapter 894. Yunjian's words seemed to cause an uproar in Guxian's ears. What did she mean by his sports car being modified to the point of being unsightly? Guxian was an upright man. He thought of something and asked on the spot, what do you mean by my sports car being modified to the point of being unsightly? As Guxian spoke, he had already followed Yunjian's words and ran aggressively to his sports car. He circled his car left and right before shouting at Yunjian, my car is a famous car personally modified by America's top mechanic, Master Corentin. How can it be unsightly? The Master Corentin that Guxian mentioned was a top mechanic in America. Even in the entire mechanic industry, Corentin was a well-known figure. Legend had it that it was very difficult to get Corentin to modify something. This was because even money wasn't tempting enough to get Corentin to modify something. One had to be someone with international status to be qualified to negotiate with Corentin. The sports car in Guxian's hands was bought from someone else. Therefore, Guxian cherished this sports car very much. To Guxian, owning this sports car was even more exciting than getting Corentin's autograph. Moreover, Corentin enjoyed a certain amount of international authority. Guxian had no doubts about Corentin at all. But today, Yunjian actually said in front of him that Corentin's modified works were unsightly. Didn't she know? International racers all wanted Corentin to modify a sports car for them, but the number of people who could actually be modified by Corentin could be counted on one's fingers. Didn't she know that if her words were heard by some people with ulterior motives, it would cause public outrage? Yun Jian heard Gu Xian's indignant voice, but Yun Jian only raised her eyebrows slightly when she heard Gu Xian's words. Seeing Yun Jian's reaction, Gu Xian thought that Yun Jian had heard of Corentin's name. Gu Xian was also a person who cared about his reputation. He thought that Yun Jian was dumbfounded by his words, so he raised his head somewhat arrogantly. Look, his car was modified by Master Corentin. Yun Jian would probably admire him for being able to get a sports car modified by Master Corentin after hearing that. Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian with his mouth slightly agape. Gu Xian looked forward to seeing Yun Jian look at him with admiration or envy. However, what Gu Xian saw was Yun Jian's eyelids flashing and her eyebrows slightly raised. Then, he heard Yun Jian say, "So it's a sports car modified by that old man Corentin? This car is probably the trashiest of all his modified sports cars." Yun Jian made a tsk sound as she spoke. Gu Xian was completely stunned when he heard Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian's way of addressing him? Plus Yun Jian's words. You know Master Corentin? Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. Corentin was an eccentric person. It was said that there were very few people who could get close to him internationally. Gu Xian only heard of one person who was very close to Corentin. Hearing Yun Jian call Corentin an old man, why did it feel like she knew Corentin? Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian with great anticipation. She actually knew Master Corentin. However, he heard Yun Jian's soft voice. Just a defeated opponent. Chapter 895. Yun Jian's tone was ostentatious, but there was an arrogance that could not be ignored. However, for some reason, Gu Xian did not think that Yun Jian was joking. Master Corentin was defeated by you? Are you sure? Gu Xian exclaimed. After that, Gu Xian asked again to confirm. Don't tell me you don't know who Master Corentin is? He's the best mechanic in the world. Whether it's a sports car or any other mechanical equipment, there's nothing he doesn't know how to do as long as it's unheard of. I don't mean to criticize you, but you haven't even met Master Corentin before, have you? Why would you say that Master Corentin was defeated by you? Gu Xian exclaimed in surprise. Yun Jian did not follow Gu Xian's words. Instead, she changed the topic and asked Gu Xian, "Do you admire Corentin a lot?" After being asked by Gu Xian indeed changed the topic. We race car enthusiasts admire him a lot because the cars he modified are twice as fast as ordinary sports cars and race cars. Gu Xian looked into the distance in admiration and said. If Gu Xian looked down on Yun Jian before, then at least Gu Xian knew that Yun Jian knew about racing. After all, if it was someone who did not know about racing, they would definitely not be able to tell that his sports car had been modified. Therefore, Gu Xian and Yun Jian started chatting unknowingly. He even said in a regretful tone, "Sigh, if I can get Master Corentin to modify another Maserati sports car for me, I'll have no regrets." Gu Xian's tone carried a hint of a sigh. Everyone knew that Corentin was an eccentric old man. He would not help you modify a sports car even if you paid for it. Unless you made him happy, he would modify it for free. Gu Xian's sports car had been in the hands of many people. By the time he got his hands on it, it was already an old car that had been driven by many people. However, this was a car modified by Master Corentin, so Gu Xian would rather drive this old car than replace it. Yun Jian stood where she was and cast a sidelong glance at Gu Xian as she continued, "As long as you get the Maserati modified by Corentin, you'll be more respectful to my mother?" Yun Jian knew that Qin Yiru didn't want Gu Xian to disappear. Qin Yiru was kind-hearted, and Gu Xian was not a bad person. That was why Yun Jian negotiated with Gu Xian. This was the third time he heard Yun Jian negotiate with him, and it was all for Qin Yiru. Gu Xian blinked. He didn't directly answer Yun Jian's question. Instead, he asked Yun Jian somewhat enviously, "You and your mother must have a good relationship, right?" In Guxian's impression, his mother would only dress up gorgeously and fool around, only coming home in the middle of the night. His mother had never cared about him. Yes. Yunjian nodded. Guxian's red, yellow, blue, and green hair didn't match his somewhat lonely image at all. That's great. Guxian sighed deeply. The envy in his tone didn't diminish at all. As Guxian spoke, he walked away somewhat dejectedly. This time, Yunjian didn't stop Guxian. After taking 2 steps, Guxian turned his head to look at Yunjian. He chuckled, but this laugh wasn't at Yunjian, but at himself, who was lonely. I won't scold your mother anymore. As Guxian walked, he lowered his head and continued, Master Corentin is an internationally famous big shot. Until now, no one has been able to invite him. The only person who could possibly invite Master Corentin couldn't possibly be Yunjian. Chapter 896. Guxian felt that since he was already so lonely, there was no need for him to make others feel the same way. Besides, Qin Yiru had rushed over so early in the morning to make breakfast for him. It was impossible for Guxian not to be touched. After all, even Guxian's own mother had never cooked for him. Guxian also found a bit of motherly love from Qin Yiru. So you don't have to think of a way to hire Master Corentin, said Guxian. With that, he laughed self-deprecatingly and turned to get into his sports car. Then, he started the engine and stepped on the gas pedal to leave. It was not that Guxian looked down on Yunjian, but because Corentin was an internationally famous big shot. Moreover, Corentin was a weirdo in the mechanical world. If you wanted to hire him, you couldn't use money. He would only do it if he liked the person. Moreover, out of 1,000 people, there wasn't a single person that he liked. Therefore, Guxian was not looking down on Yunjian's words, but he instinctively did not believe her. In the end, Yunjian was still standing in the same spot when Guxian drove away. Yunjian stood in the same spot and smiled slightly. After a while, she took out her phone from her trouser pocket and dialed a number that she remembered in her mind but had never taken the initiative to call. Beep beep beep, after 3 rings, the call did not go through. The ringtone rang for almost half a minute. Just as the ringtone was about to end, the call was suddenly picked up. Hello? A very lazy, old man's voice in pure English came from Yunjian's phone. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. She knew that this phone number was Corentin's private landline. Most people did not have Corentin's private landline number. Old man, please do me a favor, Yunjian spoke into the phone in English very decisively. How dare you call this old man an old man? Who are you, little girl? Corentin was annoyed when he heard Yunjian's address. He immediately opened his mouth angrily. Even through the phone, Yunjian could feel that the other party was holding a landline with a childish expression. He was frowning at the landline and pretending to be angry. I'm SS. Yunjian paused in the middle of her words, then she softly spat out a letter. After Yunjian spat out the letter, she clearly heard the sound of a chair being flipped over from the other end of the phone. On the other end of the line, when Corentin heard the word SS, he wanted to stand, but unexpectedly, his leg exerted force and hooked onto his own chair. The chair was hooked and was accidentally kicked over by his own foot. Corentin fell to the ground along with the chair. However, the pain to him, the word SS. Corentin got up from the floor and crawled to the phone he had accidentally flung away at the fastest speed in his life. He trembled as he picked up the phone. Then, he used the most benevolent voice he could muster and said, You. Why are you calling me? No, are you planning to take me in as your disciple? Yunjian had never called Corentin on her own accord. The reason Corentin believed that Yunjian was SS, just because of what she said, was because other than this unknown number, the people who knew his number were all people he knew. Of course, Corentin had saved the phone number of someone he knew. Country Zhejiang Province's Longmen City. Call me back when you've arrived. I won't wait for you if you're late, Yunjian said with a faint smile. SS was the abbreviation for her by the people in the underworld. Chapter 897. Yun Jian did not give a direct reply to Corentin's words. Instead, it was Corentin who sounded flattered. All right. No, I'll fly my private helicopter over tonight. Wait for me, you must wait for me. Yun Jian pressed her lips together lightly and hung up. Not many people knew that she was slaying God, the top secret agent in the secret agent ranking. Even international tycoons and top figures rarely knew about her identity. Knowing Corentin under the identity of slaying God had a history as well. Yun Jian had thought that she would not need Corentin's private number when he had forced it on her, but she did not expect to use it so soon. It was fortunate that she had memorized Corentin's number when she saw it back then. Otherwise, she would not have been able to reach him. After making the call to Corentin, Yun Jian turned to enter Gu Yunjian's villa. Yun Jian headed to New Cruz after meeting up with Qin Yiru. Recently, New Cruz had been planning to expand the company to all major regions in the country through franchising. Of course, New Cruz's headquarters was in Longmen City and this would not change. What was franchising? It was when a brand was established, selling their products to the entire country by collecting franchising fees. Those who applied for franchising had to follow the headquarters in the renovation of their storefronts and the management model. New Cruz was still planning this, so Yun Jian had been visiting the company more frequently recently. There were some things that Zhang Jifan could not do, so Yun Jian had to do it herself. It was Saturday night. Yun Jian had promised Chen Sini to have dinner at her house and she would not go back on her word. Moreover, Yun Jian wanted to check on Chen Sini's condition. Yun Jian had gone to Zhang Xiaofeng's house the last time. She had also arranged to meet Zhang Xiaofeng at his doorstep. After Yun Jian was done with New Cruz's matters, she went straight to Zhang Xiaofeng's house. Zhang Xiaofeng had been waiting for Yun Jian at his doorstep for quite some time. It was only when a silhouette came from afar that he waved frantically. Master. When Yun Jian heard the greeting, she knew it must be Zhang Xiaofeng without thinking. Hence, Yun Jian went to Zhang Xiaofeng. Beside Zhang Xiaofeng was a chubby Zhang Jian. Zhang Jian was rubbing his head as he greeted Yun Jian cutely, Grandmaster. Yun Jian grinned and said, "Let's go." Zhang Jian had carried Chen Sini to the hospital and was considered to have saved her life. Hence, he was naturally invited to Chen Sini's house for dinner. In reality, Chen Sini's father, Chen Jinchuan, had not only invited Yun Jian and the rest. Chen Sini had just recovered from a serious illness while Chen Jinchuan was a businessman. A businessman should know how to do business. This kind of thing could be used as a pretext to invite some of his business partners over for a meal and talk about business, which was very good. Hence, when Zhang Xiaofeng brought Yun Jian and the rest to Chen Sini's house, they saw a few tables of food. Chen Sini's leg was not injured to begin with, so she could walk normally. Chen Sini's face was only slightly pale due to excessive blood loss. The most important thing for Chen Sini now was to replenish her blood composition. Yun Jian and the rest walked into the house and saw Chen Sini sitting at one of the tables, looking a little unhappy. In addition to Chen Sini, there were several other young men and women around the same age as Chen Sini sitting at the table. However, Yun Jian did not know any of them. Chapter 898. Yun Jian heard Chen Sini's shouts once she entered and saw Chen Sini waving at her, beckoning her over. Looks like we're late. The dishes are almost all here. Zhang Xiaofeng lamented before he headed over with Yun Jian and Zhang Jian. We're not late at all. It's fine as long as there's food. Zhang Jian added gluttonously as they walked. In return, Zhang Xiaofeng rolled his eyes and smacked him from top to bottom. Look at you, you're so useless. As Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian spoke, both of them followed behind Yun Jian. Jian, I've snatched this seat especially for you. Come over quickly. Seeing Yun Jian coming over, Chen Sini waved her hand quickly as if she was afraid that the seat she had snatched would be snatched away by someone else. TSK, you heartless Chen Sini. You didn't even snatch a seat for us. Zhang Xiaofeng teased. Then, the group sat down. There was a group of people sitting at the tables next to them. Only Yun Jian's table was filled with children. In reality, this was how it was usually arranged. The adults sat with the adults while the children sat with the children. Sometimes, the children's table would have their mothers with them. Yun Jian glanced around her table and saw that there were a few women at the same table as her. Of course, most of them were young men and women. It was not hard to tell that some of them were brought here by their mothers to attend the dinner. Be it the children or the women, they must have come with their fathers or husbands. Their fathers or husbands were also seated at the same table as Qin Sini's father, Qin Jinshuan. Seeing Yun Jian and her friends coming over, Qin Jinshuan, who was seated at the same table as himself, stood up. In any case, he would not forget that he was treating his daughter today because she had just recovered from a serious illness. Qin Jinshuan would never forget that the reason why his daughter could stand here alive was because Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian had saved her in time. You guys are here? Qin Jinshuan walked over to Yun Jian and the others with a wine glass in his hand. Yun Jian could tell that Qin Jinshuan's question was directed at her, so she nodded in response. Sorry for the inconvenience, ha. Qin Jinshuan laughed twice, and then continued to speak to Yun Jian. Thank you very much. Sini, you have to entertain your friends on my behalf. Qin Jinshuan said with a smile. Got it, Dad. Qin Sini nodded. Jinshuan, is this your Sini? Because Qin Jinshuan walked over, everyone's gaze turned towards him. At this moment, at the same table as Yun Jian and the others, a woman in her 40s with a twisted face asked Qin Jinshuan. Obviously, this woman knew Qin Jinshuan. Huh, that's right, this is my Sini. Qin Jinshuan said this and laughed twice. Jinshuan, I heard that Baiguang Model Agency has been banned from the industry. Also, the genitals of those talent scouts have been cut off. One of them even had 2 fingers chopped off. Did you do this, huh? A man seemed to want to show off, so he used this matter as a topic to bring it up again. Qin Jinshuan was stunned, and then he replied, I didn't do it. I can't say for sure that Baiguang Model Agency was banned, but those talent scouts' genitals were cut off. I heard that a few girls who escaped said that a young girl chopped off 2 fingers of one of the talent scouts and ordered people to cut off their genitals. I don't know if this is true. Someone added. Master, I remember that you were the last to leave. Did you do that? Zhang Xiaofeng heard the noise and asked Yun Jian. Chapter 899. Originally, Yun Jian didn't stand out when she sat there. Although Yun Jian looked exquisite, when she walked in, the boys and girls at the same table stared at her for a while. Everyone just stared at her for a while and then fell silent. The people at the same table as Yun Jian, Qin Sini, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian were all boys and girls around the same age as Yun Jian, except for the woman with a twisted face. Most of the boys and girls in their youth would be attracted to boys and girls around the same age as them. Therefore, the boys and girls at the same table also looked at Yun Jian for a while. However, they didn't pay much attention to it. But now that Zhang Xiaofeng mentioned it, everyone turned their attention to Yun Jian. When Yun Jian went to the hospital to visit Qin Sini, she also brought up this topic. However, the topic at that time wasn't about this, but about the ban of Baiguang Model Agency. Last time, Zhang Xiaofeng also asked Yun Jian if Yun Jian was behind the ban of Baiguang Model Agency. At that time, Yun Jian nodded and admitted it. However, the man with a beer belly stood out and laughed, saying that Yun Jian was just trying to take credit in front of Qin Jinshuan. The man with a beer belly was called Zhang Guodong. He was just an ordinary worker, but because he was Qin Jinshuan's relative, he rushed over to visit Qin Sini when he heard that Qin Sini was in trouble at the hospital. He was purely there to flatter Qin Jinshuan because Qin Jinshuan was the big boss of the company. It was just that he had thought of Yun Jian as such a person back then. And at today's banquet, the man with a beer belly named Zhang Guodong was also present. However, Zhang Guodong's presence wasn't invited by Qin Jinshuan. He came uninvited. Last time at the hospital, he heard that Qin Jinshuan was going to treat Yun Jian to dinner this Saturday night. How could a greedy person like Zhang Guodong not come? Therefore, he was also present now. However, when Zhang Guodong saw that Yun Jian had once again attracted everyone's attention, and the reason was the same as last time, he laughed out loud on the spot. "Little girl, are you really not going to change? Last time, when we were talking about Baiguang Model Agency being banned, you said you were the one who did it. Today, we're talking about those talent scouts. Are you going to admit it again?" Zhang Guodong asked Yun Jian proudly. Last time, it was almost the same. He was discussing this matter with someone. Zhang Xiaofeng said that Yun Jian did it, and Yun Jian also admitted it. However, this time, it was someone else who told Chen Jinchuan about the latest information they had obtained. Last time, they did not know that the talent scouts were crippled and one of them even had his hand chopped off. Today, the tragic incident of the talent scouts had spread all over Longmen City. Now that it was brought up again, Zhang Xiaofeng was accusing Yun Jian again. Zhang Guodong thought that Yun Jian was using her disciple, Zhang Xiaofeng, to gain Chen Jinchuan's favor. Zhang Guodong wanted to gain Chen Jinchuan's favor, so he assumed that Yun Jian was that kind of person as well. Therefore, his tone was not exactly friendly. As if to prove his point, Zhang Guodong took the liberty to say to Yun Jian again, "If you're really behind what happened to those talent scouts, why didn't you say so last time? I'm sure she didn't do it." Zhang Guodong's analysis sounded logical. Chapter 900. Ever since Yun Jian had appeared, she had always given people the impression that she was a woman of few words. Therefore, when Zhang Guodong pointed at Yun Jian and Yun Jian retorted in such a tone, everyone present felt a sudden sense of novelty. However, before everyone could react, Yun Jian's words drifted over again. "Are you my biological mother or my biological father? Why should I report these things to you? Besides, would you believe me if I told you?" Yun Jian's words had hit the nail on the head. First, who was Zhang Guodong? Who was he to her? Why should she report her own matters to him? Second, would he believe her if she told him? The answer was no. Besides, Zhang Guodong himself had said that last time when they were talking about the Baiguang Model Agency being banned, Yun Jian had said that she was the one who did it. However, from Zhang Guodong's tone just now, everyone present could tell that he definitely didn't believe Yun Jian. Yun Jian's few words had made Zhang Guodong speechless. Zhang Guodong's spirit had been completely destroyed by Yun Jian's sharp words, but he still held back his anger and planned to find a chance to fiercely retaliate against Yun Jian next time. All right, stop talking. Let's eat. Chen Jinchuan saw that the situation wasn't right, so he immediately tried to mediate. After all, he was the one who invited Yun Jian and Zhang Guodong to dinner. His original intention was to repay Yun Jian for saving Chen Sini's life. However, if Yun Jian quarreled with Zhang Guodong, wouldn't it become a bad thing instead of repaying her kindness? Under such circumstances, Chen Jinchuan naturally had to step in and stop them. Here it comes. The last dish is here. Everyone, try it. These dishes were all made by me. At this moment, Chen Sini's mother, Hixia, walked out of the kitchen. Hixia was followed by several nannies. At this moment, the nannies were serving dishes to each table. Tonight's dinner was prepared by Hixia. Although Hixia looked like a well-bred young lady, she had actually learned how to cook. The dishes she made were comparable to the chefs of 4-star hotels. However, after Hixia married Chen Jinchuan and gave birth to Chen Sini, she rarely cooked. Today, Hixia cooked because she wanted to repay Yun Jian and the others with sincerity. My mom's cooking is delicious. Jian, eat it and ignore those lunatics. We'll eat our own food. Chen Sini had disliked Zhang Guodong for a long time. Hearing Zhang Guodong treat Yun Jian like this, she was not angry at all. That's right. Master, have a taste. Zhang Xiaofeng also shouted. Yes. Yun Jian smiled and nodded. At the same time, Zhang Jian, who was beside them, could not close his mouth. Just as Yun Jian finished 2 prawns, someone came through the door late. Upon closer inspection, it was Ling Yichen. Ling Yichen's father was a family friend of Chen Sini's father, so it was not unusual for a playboy like him to show up here. However, it had been a while since Ling Yichen had appeared in front of Yun Jian and her friends because he was preparing for a competition. In addition, Ling Yichen was not in the same class as Yun Jian and her friends, so Yun Jian had not seen him for a long time. "Hey, you guys have already started eating." I'm late, haha. Ling Yichen said as he ran toward Yun Jian and her friends. "You actually have time to spare?" Zhang Xiaofeng wanted to tease everyone he met. Chapter 901. Great beauty Chen just got discharged today. How can I not do her the honor? Ling Yichen said as he walked up to Zhang Xiaofeng. Then, he squeezed into Zhang Xiaofeng's side and snatched half of Zhang Xiaofeng's stool. F***CKU, kid. Zhang Xiaofeng was very unhappy that half of his stool had been snatched away. He continued to shout, "Kid, you snatched my stool the moment you arrived. Scram to the side. Go get your own stool." Haha. Ling Yichen laughed heartily. Then, he turned to look at Yun Jian who was sitting on his seat and greeted, Hey, Yun Jian, long time no see." Yun Jian replied with a simple smile. "Ling Yichen?" While Ling Yichen was happily fighting for a stool with Zhang Xiaofeng, a girl sitting at the same table looked at him and called out in surprise, "Hey, you're a Mr. Ling." Who was calling him? Ling Yichen turned his head around impatiently. However, when he saw the girl's face clearly, he was completely dumbfounded. "Sha?" Ling Yichen asked in surprise. This time, Zhang Xiaofeng was interested. He lifted his butt and took the opportunity to push Ling Yichen, who was snatching his seat, out of his stool. Because Ling Yichen was stunned just now, he was directly pushed out of half of his stool by Zhang Xiaofeng. Seeing that Ling Yichen and this girl called Sha had acknowledged each other, Yun Jian was not at all interested. She continued to peel the prawns in her hands. These prawns were delicious. Ling Yichen did not expect to bump into Sha here at all. He was a little stunned. This girl called Sha was called Ji Sha. She was Ling Yichen's ex-girlfriend. Speaking of Ling Yichen's love affairs, he really had a lot of them. He was the famous playboy in school. Before this, he changed girlfriends like he changed clothes. However, after meeting Yun Jian and the others, he completely restrained his temper. Right now, the school was abuzz with rumors that Ling Yichen had actually curbed his playful personality. This was simply untrue. The thing Ling Yichen was most afraid of right now was meeting his ex-girlfriends. Coincidentally, he actually met one today. While Ling Yichen was still in a daze, the boys and girls beside Ji Sha surrounded her and asked her questions. "Sha, who is this person? You guys know each other?" "That's right." "Sasha, do you know them?" The people at the same table surrounded Ji Sha and asked. It felt as if Ji Sha was being praised to the heavens. On the other hand, Ji Sha herself was quite pretty, so she felt like she was floating in the air. "My friend," Ji Sha said arrogantly to the people around her. Then, she turned to look at Ling Yichen and invited him. "Ling Yichen, we haven't seen each other in a while. Shall we go shopping together later?" Ji Sha's gaze was as if Ling Yichen did not want to go shopping with her, it meant that he did not dare to go. Ling Yichen was silent for 2 seconds, then agreed. "Okay. The more the merrier. Bring your friends along and we'll go together," Ji Sha continued to say to Ling Yichen. However, at this moment, Ji Sha's gaze was on Yun Jian. Beautiful girls always like to compare themselves with other girls. Ji Sha was also such a girl. Moreover, Yun Jian was pretty. The boys and girls on Ji Sha's side also joined in the commotion. Especially the boys on Ji Sha's side. Their eyes were almost transfixed on Yun Jian. Chapter 902. Yeah. Let's go and have some fun, Ji Sha added. When Ling Yichen heard that, he immediately turned to ask Yunjian and Zhang Xiaofeng, "Are you guys coming?" Actually, when Ling Yichen looked at Yunjian and Zhang Xiaofeng, he looked like he was asking for help. He actually didn't want to go with Ji Shasha, but her tone made it sound like he didn't dare to go if he didn't go. Ling Yichen admitted that he was a person who cared a lot about his reputation. Hence, based on this point alone, Ling Yichen had to go. He was a man. Who was he afraid of? Wasn't it just an ex-girlfriend? Wasn't it he who dumped her back then? Sensing Ling Yichen's pleading gaze, Yun Jian continued peeling the prawns and eating as she answered, "I'm fine with anything." Her hands were covered in greasy prawn oil, but Yun Jian didn't care. "If Master goes, I'll go," Zhang Xiaofeng quickly replied. "If Grandmaster goes, I'll go," Zhang Xiaofeng said, mimicking Zhang Xiaofeng's words. The moment Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian finished speaking, Ji Shasha couldn't help but laugh. After Ji Shasha stopped laughing, she even used her hands to cover her face as if she was trying to hide her ugliness. "Master? Grandmaster? You guys still want to have a master?" Ji Shasha turned to Yun Jian and smiled. Other than comparing with each other, if two girls became friends, they would also like to pair up with each other. For example, if she knew a guy, she would like to find a partner for her friend. Of course, in 1999, such things weren't as common as now, but it was undeniable that such things still existed. Hence, other than comparing her beauty with Yun Jian at first sight, Ji Shasha also wanted to become friends with Yun Jian. Because this way, in other people's eyes, she would be a beauty, and her friends would be beautiful too. This kind of concept took root in the hearts of young girls like Ji Shasha. "Isn't that so? This is my master." Zhang Xiaofeng didn't care about Ji Shasha's disdain towards them. On the contrary, he proudly introduced Yun Jian to Ji Shasha. "Of course. There's no one in this world who's more powerful than my grandmaster," Zhang Jian added. After listening to Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian's words, Ji Shasha and the others felt some disdain in their hearts, but she pretended to be very respectful on the surface. Of course, Ji Shasha and the others only took the matter of Yun Jian accepting Zhang Xiaofeng as her disciple and Zhang Jian as her grand disciple as a joke. Students in school often like to become sworn brothers, or between students of the same grade, "You call me grandpa, I'll call you grandma." Of course, there were also master and disciple relationships. However, it was rare for two big boys to take a girl as his master and the other to call her grandmaster. However, the people present only felt that the words master and martial ancestor were merely titles. This kind of master-disciple relationship was probably just to get closer to the other party, as if they had a very good relationship with the other party. That was all. How could there be any real skills that could be taught to a master and disciple or grand disciple? What skills could Yun Jian teach Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian? This was simply impossible. In any case, she, Ji Shasha, didn't believe that Yun Jian had any real skills that could be taught to Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian. Young people usually ate faster, so Yun Jian's table finished eating very quickly. Of course, the other tables didn't eat so quickly, especially the adults led by Chen Jinshuan. Other than eating, they had more important things to do, which was to chat about business. Even after eating, they would chat for at least 2 to 3 hours before leaving. Chapter 903. Right after dinner, Ji Shasha took the lead and asked Ling Yichen to bring along Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and the other two to go shopping. Chen Sini had just recovered from her illness. She had just been saved not too long ago, so of course, she could not run around as if nothing had happened to her. To be honest, Chen Sini was still under observation. Although she was discharged from the hospital, she could be in danger at any time. Therefore, it was not appropriate for her to go shopping under such circumstances. It was obvious that Chen Sini would not go. "Jian, I'm so bored at home. Why don't you stay and keep me company?" Chen Sini pulled Yun Jian back when she saw that Yun Jian wanted to go with them and looked at her pitifully. Once Ling Yichen heard that Chen Sini wanted to keep Yun Jian, He dashed over to snatch the girl away. Ling Yichen actually admired Yun Jian and wanted to take Yun Jian out so that she could stand up for him. Once he recalled how Ji Sha betrayed him and got together with another guy because he was not as good as the other guy, he was filled with rage. Since Yun Jian was so capable, Ling Yichen wanted Yun Jian to go with him to back him up. "Sinny, let Yun Jian go shopping with us." "Heh, I'll bring you candied haws when I come back." Ling Yichen tempted Chen Sinny with delicious food. "Tsk, I don't want to." Chen Sinny turned her head away, but her hand was still gripping Yun Jian's wrist tightly. "I only want Jian to stay with me," Chen Sinny said matter-of-factly. "Then, 10 candied haws?" Ling Yichen continued to tempt her. Just when everyone thought that Chen Sinny was firm in her views, she agreed to Ling Yichen's terms without hesitation. "Deal." Yun Jian's lips twitched, but she still flashed a smile that did not lose her aura. Was she not as important as food to Chen Sinny? "Alright, let's go." Heh. Ling Yichen said as he beckoned everyone to set off together. Ji Sha also revealed a smile that could be considered good or bad. Then they walked out of the gate and headed towards the downtown area near Chen Sinny's villa. There was also a downtown area near Chen Sinny's house. Moreover, there were many food stalls and vendors near the busy streets. Especially in this downtown square, there were many aunties twisting their butts and dancing in the square. The atmosphere on the square could be said to be quite harmonious. This downtown area was quite lively, especially the noisy square dance, which simply brought the atmosphere here to the climax. There's a lot of fun games over there. There's also a lot of delicious food. Let's hurry over and take a look. Ji Sha walked at the front. As she spoke, she led everyone to the most lively place. Ji Sha took 2 steps in that direction before she seemed to remember something. She turned around and ran to Yun Jian, reaching out to hold Yun Jian's wrist as if they were best friends. There's a lot of fun games over there. There's even a game of shooting, archery, and darts. Let's go take a look. Ji Sha said as she reached out to hold Yun Jian. However, before Ji Sha's hand could touch Yun Jian's wrist, Yun Jian had already dodged it discreetly. "I don't like other people touching me," Yun Jian said coldly and arrogantly as she dodged Ji Sha's hand. Chapter 904. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Ji Sha's face stiffened. Ji Sha was covered in perfume, so Yun Jian felt disgusted just by smelling it. Of course, Yun Jian would not directly tell Ji Sha something like, "Get lost, I hate the perfume on your body." It was just that Yun Jian was not willing to interact with Ji Sha. Seeing Yun Jian speak to her with such an attitude, Ji Sha froze and even rolled her eyes at Yun Jian. However, Ji Sha could not throw a tantrum in front of everyone. She only saw Yun Jian as a cold girl, so she was stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled at Yun Jian again and said, Let's go play over there then." As if to ease the tension, Ji Sha even flashed a smile at Yun Jian. When the boys saw Yun Jian speak to Ji Sha like that, they had a good impression of Ji Sha's actions. At that moment, they all thought to themselves, "This Ji Sha sure has a good temper. Not only is she beautiful, but she also has a good temper." However, Yun Jian was not bad either. Because Yun Jian was prettier and more exquisite than Ji Sha, Yun Jian was the kind of girl who could not be found lacking at all. Moreover, Yun Jian did not use rouge or face powder, but her skin still looked tender. This made everyone's hearts itch. Therefore, even though Yun Jian had said those words just now, the boys felt that Yun Jian was much better than Ji Sha. Let's go play games. It's boring to stay here." The boys also joined in the commotion. Thus, the group walked towards the gaming area at the plaza. Other than a group of aunties dancing in the plaza, the gaming area was right next to it. Speaking of the gaming area, one had to mention the balloon shooting game. How did Ling Yichen meet Yun Jian back then? They had met during the school's autumn outing when they won a prize by shooting balloons in the park. Back then, Ling Yichen was still a little conceited, thinking that he was very good at shooting balloons. However, after meeting Yunjian, he realized that the worst thing he did was to act like a big shot in front of Yunjian. In the end, he was slapped in the face. Let's go play balloon shooting. You boys should be very good, right? Get a big doll for us girls. Ji Shasha saw that Yunjian was ignoring her, so she turned around and held another girl's hand in hand. Ji Shasha's words made several of the boys present roll up their sleeves. They wanted to show off in front of the girls to show off their prowess. Go away, go away. Leave this to me. Among them, the one who had called Yunjian a babe and jeered the loudest, the one with a crooked nose but dressed fashionably, took a glance at Yunjian before going up to show off his skills in front of the girls. In this balloon shooting game, you could shoot balloons with guns, darts, or even shoot balloons with arrows. In short, as long as you could shoot balloons within the set number, you would win the prize. Of course, it was actually quite difficult to shoot a gun. Moreover, some shop owners had tampered with the guns. Even if the gun was aimed at the balloons, it would not hit. The boy with the crooked nose was called Zhang Qingrui. He even struck a pose that he thought was very handsome, then glanced at Yunjian from the corner of his eye. Just then, Ling Yichen's voice was heard. Yunjian, do you want to go shoot a few shots too? Cindy is still hiding the big doll you gave her last time. If you give her another one, she'll be even happier later. It was actually very difficult to win a balloon shooting game like this. It was even harder to get a big doll. Chapter 905. Zhang Qingrui had just raised the toy gun in his hand. He wanted to show off his skills in front of the girls by holding the toy gun and aiming at the balloons. Then, he heard Ling Yichen say that Yunjian had hit a big doll before. When they heard that Yunjian had hit a big doll before, everyone present was slightly stunned. Since the shop owner relied on this to make money, then the game he set up must be difficult. In other words, it was basically impossible to hit all the balloons and win the big doll. Unless the person was really good at playing with guns, darts, or archery, there was no way they could win the big doll. A guy like Zhang Qingrui could at most show off in front of everyone. In reality, he had no ability at all, let alone hit the balloons with a toy gun. Even if he was given 100 chances, he might not be able to hit the big doll. What's more, what Ji Shasha said earlier was merely lip service. Hence, everyone's eyes were glued to Yunjian. You really hit a big doll before? Wow, you're amazing. When Ji Shasha saw that Yunjian was the center of attention, she quickly walked over to Yunjian. After taking 2 steps, Ji Shasha stopped. She did not hold Yunjian's hand again, but her obvious goodwill was obvious to everyone present. Ha, what a hypocrite. When he saw Ji Shasha walk over to Yunjian, Zhang Xiaofeng obviously snorted. However, Zhang Xiaofeng did not make it too obvious. Ji Shasha did not hear Zhang Xiaofeng snort at all. She was still standing beside Yunjian, feeling everyone's attention. Ji Shasha stood beside Yunjian, wanting to mislead everyone into thinking that she was very close to Yunjian. This way, all the gazes that were sizing up Yunjian would shift to her. Seeing that Yunjian was ignoring her, Ji Shasha did not change her mind. She continued to shout at Yunjian, since you're so good, can you give me a big doll? I really like that big teddy bear over there. Can you bring it down for me? Ji Shasha was still pretending that she was very close to Yunjian, but at this moment, she felt more and more eyes on her. Therefore, Ji Shasha was rather pleased with herself. Not interested, Yunjian directly rejected Ji Shasha's pleas. She didn't even look at Ji Shasha. Ji Shasha was filled with resentment toward Yunjian for that. She actually ignored her words again and again. Who did she think she was? Ji Shasha was so angry that she almost exploded on the spot. But for the sake of her image, she held back. Just when the atmosphere was at its peak, Ling Yichen's voice was heard again. I heard from Cindy last time that she wanted a big teddy bear. She can pair it up with the big rabbit from last time. Just as Ling Yichen finished speaking, Yun Jian was already standing in front of the balloon shooting game. She took out some loose cash and handed it to the shop owner, then said softly, "Darts." Ji Sha, who was standing at the side after being rejected by Yun Jian, saw Yun Jian's actions. Her existence was the most awkward. Just now, when she wanted Yun Jian to beat up a teddy bear for her, Yun Jian directly told her that she wasn't interested. In the end, when Ling Yichen said that Chen Sini wanted it, Yun Jian went to pay for it without another word. Whether Yun Jian could win the teddy bear or not, Ji Sha felt that she had formed a grudge with Yun Jian. Chapter 906. Ji Sha glared at Yun Jian. She bit her lip with her front teeth, and the force she exerted was enough to prove that she hated Yun Jian to the core. However, Ji Sha's expression was still very friendly. "Wait." Ji Sha's voice suddenly rang out just as the shop owner handed the dart to Yun Jian and Yun Jian was about to reach out for it. Yun Jian paused, and her hand also stopped. She had long seen through Ji Sha's character, and now she wanted to see what tricks Ji Sha had up her sleeves. Thus, Yun Jian stopped. She stood in front of the balloon shooting grand prize stall with her arms crossed. Yun Jian's aura was very good to begin with. Moreover, her appearance was outstanding. Not only did she look tall and slender, but more importantly, her face was cold and arrogant yet had the delicate features of a young girl. Everyone present couldn't help but look at her. At this moment, Yun Jian's aura was top-notch. It was something that people like Ji Sha couldn't even compare to. "What?" Yun Jian spat out a slow and frivolous tone with a hint of laziness. Ji Sha couldn't help but gulp. However, she continued to show her signature smile and said, "Zhang Qingrui, aren't you pretty good at shooting, darts, and archery? Coincidentally, Ling Yichen's friend is pretty good too. Why don't the two of you compete? Hey, I think a simple game is too boring. The two of you should compete. That's more exciting, right?" Ji Sha couldn't help but provoke. Guys loved excitement. Actually, girls loved excitement too. However, as long as they weren't the ones being watched, who wouldn't want to watch others do exciting things or compete? Thus, just as Ji Sha finished speaking, Ji Sha and Zhang Qingrui's group of friends started to jeer again. That's right. The two of you should compete. We're all watching. Hee hee. Someone said to Yun Jian and Zhang Qingrui. That's right. Pretty girl, you should compete with Zhang Qingrui. The fact that you got the big doll before means that you're really lucky. Isn't that the saying that luck is also a kind of ability? Zhang Qingrui knows how to shoot, and shoot. You should compete with him. If you can beat Zhang Qingrui, we'll give it to you. Although Yun Jian had gotten the big doll before, it was only once. Ji Sha's friends naturally wouldn't think that Yun Jian had practiced. After all, Yun Jian was still young and she was a girl. Which girl would practice marksmanship, darts, and archery? Therefore, everyone thought that Yun Jian was lucky to have won the prize back then. Ling Yichen was inwardly gleeful when he saw the questioning gazes of the people around them. Ling Yichen was planning to let Yun Jian teach them a lesson later. At that moment, Zhang Qingrui, who was asked to compete with Yun Jian in shooting, darts, or shooting, looked at Yun Jian eagerly. He even pretended to be cool as he flipped his short hair. His smug expression was hard to ignore. Although Zhang Qingrui had never won the big doll, he was still an expert at shooting balloons. Coupled with the praises of the people around him, he really thought that he was amazing. At the same time, he naturally thought that Yun Jian had won the big doll because of Yun Jian's luck. After all, luck was also a kind of ability. Chapter 907. Zhang Qingrui said this with a confident tone, as if he was really invincible. Oh, when the surrounding people heard Zhang Qingrui's indirect confession, they all cheered, hey, for a moment. Young people liked to jeer, and of course, Ji Sha's group of friends were the same. What's more, some students in the school liked to do the most was to pair up. When they were paired up, they liked to act as matchmakers and help others get paired up. Zhang Qingrui, don't tell me you liked the girl from the first time you saw her. You were just trying to hit on her. After a boy finished jeering, he started to tease Zhang Qingrui. Boys like to kick up a fuss, especially when a boy confessed to a girl. If there were friends standing around, then his friends would definitely exaggerate and kick up a fuss. Although Zhang Qingrui had just gotten to know Yunjian and it was considered a bet, everyone was observant and could tell that Zhang Qingrui was interested in Yunjian at first glance. If you ask me, Zhang Qingrui is such an outstanding person. He's not bad looking and has a good family background. Pretty girl, I think you should just say yes to him. Say yes to him and we can hang out together in the future. Isn't that great, right? Haha. Another guy spoke up for Zhang Qingrui. The way he called her, pretty girl, made Yunjian uncomfortable all over. She didn't know why, but she just didn't like this atmosphere. Not only did she not like it, but she also hated it. When he heard his brother speaking up for him, Zhang Qingrui forgot about the bet he had previously thought of. He looked at Yunjian with deep affection. Yunjian's looks were indeed outstanding. She was the most outstanding in both appearance and temperament. That face without any makeup was as smooth and delicate as a newborn baby. It made people itch when they looked at it from afar. Such a beauty, if he could get his hands on her, bah! You're really a toad lusting after a swan. You? Are you worthy of my master? Little guy, it's morning. Stop dreaming. Zhang Xiaofeng was disgusted by Zhang Qingrui's words. He looked at Zhang Qingrui and said angrily. Zhang Xiaofeng's words made Zhang Qingrui want to strangle Zhang Xiaofeng to death. If it weren't for the fact that he wanted to establish a good image in front of Yunjian, Zhang Qingrui would have rushed up and fought with Zhang Xiaofeng. TSK. What toad lusting after swan meat? You better show me some respect. Otherwise, I'll make you leave crying. Although Zhang Qingrui didn't make a move, his tone wasn't pleasant either. Just as Zhang Xiaofeng was about to roll up his sleeves and fight with Zhang Qingrui, Yunjian's cold voice sounded. I agree to bet with you. Yunjian's cold voice was devoid of any warmth. Everyone's hearts tightened slightly. Yunjian agreed to Zhang Qingrui's bet. However, based on the current situation, Yunjian would definitely lose. After all, Zhang Qingrui was really capable. What about Yunjian? She was just lucky the last time. Everyone present automatically thought that Yunjian was lucky to win the big doll. So when they heard that Yunjian agreed to the bet with Zhang Qingrui, could it be understood that she was indirectly agreeing to be Zhang Qingrui's girlfriend? Just as everyone thought of this, even Zhang Qingrui himself thought so. Yunjian's voice sounded again. She said to Zhang Qingrui. Chapter 908. How ruthless. If Zhang Qingrui lost to Yunjian, he would have to kneel down and kowtow to Yunjian 3 times and call her ancestor. If Zhang Qingrui really kneeled down and kowtowed to Yunjian 3 times and called Yunjian ancestor, Zhang Qingrui would probably lose all his dignity and face. Everyone present took a deep breath and turned to look at Yunjian. Yunjian's words were something that no one present expected. Even Ling Yichen, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian who were watching the show from the side were slightly shocked. Not only did Yunjian agree to the bet, but she also wanted Zhang Qingrui to kowtow to her 3 times if she won. Wasn't this a little too ruthless? However, before anyone could think about it, Yunjian's words came again. She said to Zhang Qingrui in a provocative tone, "How about it? Do you dare to bet with me?" Yunjian's tone sounded as if everything was under her control. It was as if Zhang Qingrui was bound to lose. At that moment, even Zhang Qingrui couldn't help but take a deep breath. After he calmed down, he remained silent for a while. If he went back on his word and didn't bet with Yunjian, it would destroy the masculinity that he had just built up. For a moment, Zhang Qingrui really didn't know how to choose. "Heh, that's all you have," Yunjian scoffed and said softly. Yun Jian's mocking words directly provoked Zhang Qingrui's morale. If Zhang Qingrui did have the intention to give up on the bet with Yun Jian, then at that moment, Zhang Qingrui was completely instigated by Yun Jian. Why wouldn't I dare to bet? Zhang Qingrui said loudly. After a pause, he continued to look at Yun Jian from head to toe and said, "Little beauty, you said it yourself. If you lose, you have to be my girlfriend. You can't go back on your word." Zhang Qingrui looked at Yun Jian with an evil gaze, which made Yun Jian very unhappy. Yun Jian didn't say whether she agreed or not. She continued to urge, "Do you want to go first, or should I?" "Of course I'll go first." Zhang Qingrui pretended to be a man and stretched out his arms to show off his muscles, but in fact, he didn't have any muscles at all. As he spoke, Zhang Qingrui had already arrived in front of the balloon shooting game stall under the cheers of the boys. "Then let's compete in darts." Zhang Qingrui saw Yun Jian holding darts in her hand, so he smiled slyly. She had heard from Ling Yichen that Yun Jian had gotten a big doll from shooting. Now that they were competing in darts, Yun Jian wouldn't know how to do it, would she? When he thought about how he only needed to pop a few more balloons than Yun Jian to be able to have the beauty in his arms, Zhang Qingrui felt his body become restless. "Good luck, you guys." Ji Shasha, who was standing far away, smiled, but she had other thoughts in her mind. "Good luck, good luck. Master, you can do it." Zhang Xiaofeng shouted, not to be outdone. "Grandmaster, you can do it. You're the best. Hee, let him see your amazing skills." Zhang Jian also followed up with a shout. Bang! At that moment, Zhang Qingrui had already popped the first balloon with the first dart in his hand. Zhang Qingrui broke out in cold sweat when he popped the first balloon, but he still looked at Yun Jian very proudly. His gaze was as if he was gloating that he had popped the first balloon, as if he would definitely win. Chapter 909. Zhang Qingrui saw that Yun Jian didn't intend to pay attention to him, but he wasn't angry. Instead, he put on an expression that said, "Just wait and see." Then, he took the dart and threw it again with full concentration. Bang! The sound of a balloon being punctured was heard again. At this time, sweat gathered on Zhang Qingrui's forehead. Every time Zhang Qingrui threw a dart, his hand trembled. It had to be said that Zhang Qingrui's hand trembled more and more as the dart went on. After all, the first and second dart might be able to hit the balloon, but if he didn't have confidence in himself, what if one of the dart flew wrong and couldn't puncture the balloon? Of course, Zhang Qingrui and Yun Jian were competing to see who could puncture more balloons. If neither of them reached 15 dart and each dart punctured a balloon, then it would depend on who could puncture more balloons. But what if Yun Jian really hit every dart? This was what Zhang Qingrui was afraid of. If Yun Jian hit every dart and was really lucky, then wouldn't he really have to kowtow to Yun Jian 3 times and call her ancestor in public? No, this was impossible, and he couldn't. He still wanted to save face. For the next dozen or so dart, Zhang Qingrui developed quite well. He actually punctured more than a dozen balloons. This kind of dart could fly 15 dart in total. However, when Zhang Qingrui threw the 13th dart, he suddenly lost control of his hand and threw a dart that didn't hit the balloon. This miss scared Zhang Qingrui. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, and his hand couldn't help but shiver. Come on, Zhang Qingrui. I believe you can do it. Zhang Qingrui's buddy next to him cheered for Zhang Qingrui. Zhang Qingrui tried to calm down after being cheered by his buddy. After calming down, Zhang Qingrui took 2 deep breaths, and then he threw the last 2 dart in succession. Bang bang. The 2 dart punctured the balloon and made the sound of the balloon being punctured. Phew. Zhang Qingrui breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he stretched out his hand and swung it. Only then did he look at Yun Jian. Little beauty, it's your turn. Zhang Qingrui teased. There were a total of 15 darts, and he hit 14 of them. That was to say, he had punctured 14 balloons, and only 1 balloon had not been hit. This kind of result should be considered to be in the upper echelons of the number of people who won the balloon shooting game, right? Zhang Qingrui, you're amazing. Too powerful. Ji Shasha couldn't help but speak first. As she spoke, Ji Shasha looked at Ling Yichen provocatively. Actually, Ji Shasha was competing with Ling Yichen. Hee. Zhang Qingrui really thought that he was very powerful. He touched his head, but didn't forget to remind Yunjian, little beauty, I'm looking forward to your performance. As he spoke, Zhang Qingrui still had a feeling that he was determined to win. When Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Zhang Jian saw this from afar, they did not panic at all. At the same time, Yun Jian extended her arms and held the 15 darts in each of her hands. Almost at the same time, she divided the 15 darts into 7 for her left hand and 8 for her right hand, holding them separately in both hands. F***CK, what's she doing? Is she going to throw 15 darts at the same time? Is she stupid? How low is the hit rate if she throws 15 darts at the same time? It's impossible to hit the target. Someone analyzed in a low voice. However, halfway through his analysis, Yun Jian had already thrown the darts in her hands. 15 darts were shot out at the same time. Everyone present was slightly surprised. However, just as everyone present thought that there was no chance of winning if all 15 darts were shot at the same time. Chapter 9-10. 15 darts flew out from Yun Jian's hands. She threw the darts with both hands at the same time. The 15 darts were like a curved arc as they flew out at the same time. Not long after, a piercing sound was heard. 15 darts flew out at once. Everyone present widened their eyes and looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. For a moment, the surroundings were extremely quiet. Other than the sound of the square dance march not far away, everyone who had witnessed the scene just now looked over in shock. To be precise, they were looking at Yun Jian. You. Zhang Qingrui was so shocked that he could not speak. He had long been shocked by the way Yun Jian threw the darts. He stuttered but could only say, you, in the end. Zhang Qingrui was stunned. Ji Shasha was even more dumbfounded. She originally wanted Yun Jian to lose, but she did not expect Yun Jian to win. Not only did she win, but she also threw all 15 darts and won in the shortest time possible. The 15 darts were held in both hands. How did Yun Jian manage to throw all the darts out at once? Most importantly, she was able to make each of the darts puncture the balloons. It had to be said that Yun Jian's move just now was too terrifying. It had completely overturned everyone's understanding. Even the shop owner was dumbfounded. The shop owner's mouth was still agape, and he looked like he could not react for a long time. She won just like that? Hee, boss, she won. Shouldn't you give us the big bear doll? Ling Yichen went to the front and looked at the shop owner with a grin. He even reached out his hand to ask for it. Yun Jian had already paid for the balloons. Moreover, with so many people watching, the shop owner could not go back on his word. The shop owner took the big teddy bear from his stall and handed it to Ling Yichen in the end. Ji Shasha watched as Yun Jian really hit the big bear doll. Her face was full of envy. Then, Ji Shasha watched as Ling Yichen took the big bear doll and hugged it in his arms. Ji Shasha was extremely envious. Ling Yichen, can you give this big teddy bear to me? Ji Shasha shamelessly asked Ling Yichen for it. She did not care if the teddy bear belonged to Yun Jian. It was in Ling Yichen's hands anyway. Back then, when Ling Yichen and Ji Shasha were still a couple, he would buy everything for Ji Shasha and treated her extremely well. However, Ji Shasha ran away with another guy because she despised Ling Yichen for not being as good as the other guy. Ji Shasha thought that since they were boyfriend and girlfriend in the past, Ling Yichen would probably give the big teddy bear to her, right? F***CK, get lost. Who wants to give it to you? It's Yun Jian's. Ling Yichen did not even look at Ji Shasha as he cursed. Ji Sha was stunned. She had never heard Ling Yichen swear at her before. However, it was also at this moment that Yun Jian's voice rang out again. I've won. It's time for you to honor your words. Her words were directed at Zhang Qingrui. This. Zhang Qingrui suddenly remembered that he had promised Yun Jian. He immediately bit his lip. Hey, I was just joking just now. Little beauty, you were joking too, right? Hee, what kind of relationship do we have now? Let's just forget about what happened just now. Zhang Qingrui made up a bunch of nonsense. Yeah, we were just joking just now. Hee, I think we should just forget about it. Immediately, a guy stood up for Zhang Qingrui. Forget about it? Yun Jian frowned. If she was the one who lost today, Yun Jian was sure that Zhang Qingrui would force her to honor her words. Heh. You don't want to admit it? Yun Jian looked at Zhang Qingrui with a murderous glint in her eyes. Just as Zhang Qingrui was about to say something, he suddenly felt a voice in front of him. In the next second, he felt someone kick him from behind and he fell to the ground with a thud. Chapter 9-11. Startled by Yun Jian's sudden action, everyone present was taken aback. It was inevitable that Zhang Qingrui would not keep his word. Boys and girls who were in puberty had to kneel down and kowtow to others. They also had to call them ancestors. No one would be happy to do such a thing. Especially a boy like Zhang Qingrui who cared about his reputation to the extreme. Previously, when he hit on Yun Jian in front of her, Zhang Qingrui was holding on to the fact that Yun Jian was beautiful. If he could successfully make Yun Jian his girlfriend, then he would be particularly magical in front of his classmates and friends. In this way, his reputation would be very big. Moreover, when he agreed to bet with Yun Jian, Zhang Qingrui felt that he would not lose. Even if he lost, he felt that he would not keep his promise. At most, he would just find an excuse. What kind of bet would there be? This matter would definitely be over just like that. However, who would have thought that when Zhang Qingrui and his group once again tried to use their previous methods to casually fool Yun Jian's original words as a joke, Yun Jian would actually do such a shocking thing. She actually went directly behind Zhang Qingrui, stretched out her leg and stomped on Zhang Qingrui's back, forcing him to kneel down. Girls were generally very reserved, especially in front of boys. Even the most irritable girls would become reserved. However, look at Yun Jian. She made a bet with Zhang Qingrui, but Zhang Qingrui did not keep his word after losing. She directly stepped on Zhang Qingrui's back in front of so many people. She even said something like, "If you don't keep your promise today, I will make sure you won't see the sun tomorrow." Was this still the attitude a girl should have? Ouch! Zhang Qingrui was forced to kneel on the ground by Yun Jian. He suddenly felt that he had lost all his face, so he struggled to stand up. However, Yun Jian's foot seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. It was like a huge rock, oppressing him to the point that it was difficult for him to even breathe. "You, little beauty, you are too much." A boy around saw it and pointed at Yun Jian. This boy was the one who helped Zhang Qingrui to get Yun Jian to agree to be Zhang Qingrui's girlfriend. F***ck, how did my master go overboard? Today's bet was brought up by your people first. My master is only asking you to fulfill your promise. How is this going overboard? I think it's you guys who can't afford to lose. Zhang Xiaofeng quickly spoke up for Yun Jian. Exactly. If you can't afford to lose, then why do you still want to compete with my grandmaster? You guys are really shameless. Zhang Jian also took advantage of the situation and said. You. The boy who spoke for Zhang Qingrui just now was no match for Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian stopped him with a few words. Are you going to kowtow? Are you going to shout or not? Yun Jian stepped on Zhang Qingrui's back, forcing him to lower his head even more. You. Aren't you going too far? How can we girls be like this? Just then, Ji Shasha's voice sounded weakly from the side. Ji Shasha's words were directed at Yunjian. However, when these words came out of Ji Shasha's mouth, why did it sound like she was blaming Yunjian for being rude and not behaving like a girl at all? Before anyone could think about it, they saw Yunjian stepping on Zhang Qingrui's back, and with a fierce kick, she forced Zhang Qingrui to kowtow to the ground, making a bang sound. If you don't kowtow, I'll help you. Yunjian ignored Ji Shasha's words. At the same time, she lifted her foot, and when Zhang Qingrui's body bounced back, she ruthlessly kicked him again. Chapter 9:12. As Yunjian spoke, she lifted her leg. Just as Zhang Qingrui's body was about to bounce back, she stomped down again. Just like that, Zhang Qingrui's head was knocked to the ground again and again. Each time, there was a loud thud. It's fine if you don't shout, but I'll make you kowtow 1,000 times. Yunjian laughed coldly. As she spoke, she used this repeated position to make Zhang Qingrui kowtow a few more times. 1,000 times? Wouldn't Zhang Qingrui's head be smashed? Everyone present couldn't help but suck in a deep breath. Zhang Qingrui's head was smashed to the ground again and again, making a series of loud noises, which made everyone's hair stand on end. Don't. Don't. Zhang Qingrui was already dizzy from the kowtowing. He struggled with all his might and even reached back to pull Yunjian's foot off his back. However, he couldn't even touch Yunjian. I'll beg for mercy. I'll talk. I'll talk. Zhang Qingrui could even feel that his forehead was bleeding. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He quickly begged Yunjian for mercy. Speak. Although Yunjian stopped making Zhang Qingrui kowtow, her foot was still on Zhang Qingrui's back. After seeing Yunjian's methods, Zhang Qingrui didn't dare to play any tricks. He still wanted to live. Thus, Zhang Qingrui swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His forehead hurt from the kowtowing. He didn't want to endure it anymore, so he mustered up his courage and called out softly, "Ancestor." Ancestor, his voice was as soft as a cat's meow. Can you hear what he said? Yunjian turned her head and looked at Zhang Xiaofeng, Zhang Jian, and Ling Yichen. Her red lips curled up. It was so beautiful that it made people's hearts itch. Ah. What did he say? Master, I can't hear him. Zhang Xiaofeng reached out to dig his ears. He pretended that he didn't hear anything, but he was secretly laughing in his heart. Did he say anything? Did someone speak just now? Martial ancestor, I only heard you talking. Zhang Jian also helped to add on. Ling Yichen was trying so hard to hold back his laughter that he was about to suffer internal injuries. He raised his hand into a fist and placed it by his mouth, coughing softly. Ahem. I didn't hear anything either. Ling Yichen lied without batting an eyelid. We all heard it. Why are you the only ones? One of Zhang Qingrui's brothers stood up and spoke for Zhang Qingrui. Just as he said that, Zhang Qingrui screamed again. Yunjian raised her foot and kicked Zhang Qingrui's forehead to the ground, making a bang sound. I can't hear what you're saying. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't make a sound, I'll take it that you want to kowtow to me 1,000 times, Yunjian said eerily. Then, she added, of course, I'd prefer it if you kowtowed to me and admitted your mistake. As she spoke, Yunjian made Zhang Qingrui hit the ground again, making loud bangs. No. No, no, I'll talk, I'll talk. Zhang Qingrui was forced into a corner by Yunjian. Finally, he could not hold it in anymore and cried out in a half-sob. Just as Zhang Qingrui said that, a rich and magnetic male voice came from the side. Xiao Jian, you're still so soft-hearted. Chapter 9:13. The moment they saw the man, all the girls' hearts began to race. They saw Ce slowly walking towards them. His steps were steady, but they were mesmerizing. Ji Shasha, who who stood where she was, watched as Ce appeared and made his way to her slowly. She felt as if her heart was about to melt, as if she had found her first love. Ji Sha even had this thought in her mind. Will this man who suddenly appeared walk towards me? The answer was no. Ce walked around Ji Sha and the others. He wasn't the least bit attracted by the girls who were looking at him with reverence. Furthermore, he didn't even look at these girls. His black eyes only reflected a proud figure from the beginning to the end. That beautiful figure, her voluptuous figure, and her every move were enough to make him unable to let go. Why are you here? Yunjian didn't loosen her grip on Zhang Qingrui's back, but she was still talking to Ce. If I didn't come, how would I be able to kill these flies who want to steal my woman? As Ce spoke, he had already arrived in front of Yunjian. As Ce spoke, he stretched out his leg and viciously stepped on Zhang Qingrui's palm, causing him to toss and turn. Ah! You! It hurts! You! Zhang Qingrui had already planned to call Yunjian ancestor in exchange for not being tortured. However, he never expected that Ce would suddenly appear after Yunjian agreed to let go. Ce didn't care who he was. He walked over and stepped on the back of Zhang Qingrui's palm without saying a word. The piercing pain caused Zhang Qingrui to curl up into a ball. Ancestor, I'm calling you ancestor. Please let me go, please let me go. Zhang Qingrui was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. At the same time, he couldn't stop himself from shouting. At this moment, he was calling out ancestor quite smoothly. Now that Yunjian had achieved her goal, she let go of his foot. In spite of it, Ce refused to budge even when Yunjian had stopped. Ce stepped on the back of Zhang Qingrui's hand, a hint of disgust appearing on his handsome face. You can prepare to die now. Ce was no doubt more ruthless than Yunjian. If one were to ask why, it was because Yunjian had more concerns than Ce. Yunjian's family in Longmen City was a family. This kinship was not easy to come by. It was something Yunjian had yearned for 2 lifetimes. Ce had no qualms at all, so it was fine when he did not make a move, but once he did, he was going to kill his opponent. It was just that for Yunjian, Ce held himself back. However, it didn't mean that he would let these people who wanted to steal his woman. Ji Sha was envious from afar. Why did such a handsome guy appear out of nowhere and turn out to be Yunjian's man? Why? As Ji Sha pondered, she plucked up her courage and took 2 steps towards Ce. Hey, handsome, he's my friend. Can you let him go? Ji Sha winked at Ce as she spoke. Ji Sha was rather confident in her looks and did not think that she was worse than Yunjian. It was her first time seeing someone as handsome as Ce. Ji Sha's eyes were glued to him and she could not think of anything else. Ji Sha was indignant when Ce ignored her. She reached out to touch Ce and said, "Handsome, do me a favor." She even stuck out her tongue playfully. She then continued, "He's my friend. Can you?" Ji Sha did not notice that Ce's brows were furrowed into a line. When Ji Sha was only half a meter away from Ce, the latter suddenly released his foot from Zhang Qingrui and raised it to kick Ji Sha's abdomen, sending her flying a few meters away. At the same time, he spat out a few words coldly, "You're right. You're right, you're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.